Were you a wrestling fan growing up?
Yeah, I was a wrestling fan growing up. I grew up in South Jersey, so I used to go over to the old Spectrum all the time and watch. We used to take the speed line over and around on the speed line, tearing the speed line up, and tearing South Philly up. So yeah, I was a big fan growing up.
Awesome. Who did you enjoy watching?
Favorites had to be Macho Man and probably the Ultimate Warrior before I realized he was a quack.
How did you get into the wrestling business?
I wrestled amateur growing up, all through high school, college, and kind of just right time, just kind of fell into it. There was a flea mart right by my house, and I always had the big truck out front, pro wrestling, Saturday night, 8 o'clock. So I decided one night to finally go. And when I went, the trainer at the school, who ended up being my partner, he was actually the trainer down there, and he was like, "Oh, we knew each other from high school because our high schools wrestled each other."
Okay.
So he was like, "Oh, you should come, you should try out," and blah 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 blah. So I did, and just kind of happened from there.
Wow. And this was the Monster Factory, correct?
That was the Monster Factory down in Clementon at the Route 30 Flea Mart. Yeah.
Wow. So what was the training like?
The training, it was a little brutal at first. I think my tryout was more intimidating to me than anything because Larry Sharpe's daughter Megan actually had, when I had my tryout, she had a school field trip there. So there was like 50 kids, like 10-year-olds there as I'm doing my tryout.
Wow.
But I tried out and then started. The training was brutal at first because, you know, like any green guy, when you get in there, you know, you're just getting the snot kicked out of you. You just get beat up, you're getting chopped, you're just taking bumps, and you're sore, and you know, it was kind of brutal at first, but it was definitely a good time. When I first started, all I did was laugh. I just couldn't believe I was actually in a ring wrestling, so it was a good time.
Wow. So what did your parents say when you told them you were going to start wrestling?
My dad really didn't give a shit. He wasn't around, so as long as I left him alone, he didn't care. My mom really didn't care that much either. She just kind of wanted me to finish college, what I was doing. She wanted me to have something to fall back on in case it didn't happen or didn't work out. She just wanted me to make sure I took care of myself.
So what was like the biggest misconception you had about wrestling before you started?
Biggest misconception? I don't know. I guess the thing I always wondered about the most was when they ran spots. You never really, you always hear the theories and the storylines of I hate to use the fake word and all that stuff. But I guess I don't even know if it's so much a misconception. I think it was more of an amazement, a wonder of how you actually, get in the ring and you do what you do. I think that was the biggest thing. So it's not so much a misconception. It was just the coolness of actually getting in there and figuring out how to tell a storyline, how to start a match from the bottom, build the walls, build the roof up to, up to the finish, and just getting it done and how the whole thing works. I think I was more amazed about that than I really didn't have any misconceptions because I had no clue what I was getting into.
Yeah. What was the hardest thing about training? Was it the bumping, the cardio, running the ropes?
The hardest thing, it's going to sound dumb, was throwing a punch. For me, I always had issues with throwing punches. The bumps were easy. Running the ropes, it all came pretty natural. Just throwing a good, solid punch without actually killing anyone. Because when I first started, I was actually only training 3 weeks when WWF was in town and they were doing, the Saturday morning superstars or whatever it was called back then. And Glenn had said to me, "Hey, WWF's in town, we're going to a show." And I'm like, "Okay." And he said, "Look, they're not going to use you. You're going to come, you're going to get paid, you'll see your face, and this is what we do, and blah, blah, blah." And they ended up using me, and I was only training 3 weeks, so I had no clue how to do anything. And the first night was Adam Bomb. My name shows up on the board, and I'm like, this is good. So again, I'm out there like this because I'm just laughing the entire time.
Yeah.
The second night, though, was Papa Shango. And this is great. He comes up to me and he goes, "Kid," he goes, "how do you throw a punch?" And I'm like, "I hit you over here somewhere, like in your neck area." He goes, "No, how do you throw it?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I kind of like hit you like over here." He goes, "No, hit a punch. I want to see how you throw your punch." I fucking almost knocked a tooth out on him. I hit him so hard, and he goes, "All right, maybe we'll have you do some kicks." We got out there. He gave me 3 kicks and then just demolished me. But yeah, that was that.
Oh, wow. Did it, since you were able to work for WWF that early in your career, did it kind of skew your opinion like guys that play football and go to the Super Bowl in their first year and they think, "Oh, well, it's that easy"?
No, not at all, because I went up there knowing. See, the good part about when I first started was Glenn training me, because Glenn had already been in business for 3 years. He had contacts. He had been doing jobs on, Saturday morning beat up guys, whatever you want to call it. So and there was enough guys around me that I kind of knew what to expect. And then from there is when we started paying our dues. I mean, I started in June of '93. That April, we went to Memphis for the first time. We were in Memphis for 3 months, making $40 a night and on the road every night, going from Memphis to Louisville to Evansville, back to Memphis and Nashville, Mississippi. So, I mean, I did 3 years of paying my dues, living in the car, eating. So it didn't do anything for me. All it did was when WWF was around, it was just giving me some extra cash to get by.
Gotcha.
So it didn't give me that prima donna or this is what I deserve thing at all, because I went through the living in the car and all that stuff before I got there.
Yeah. So Memphis, what was it like to work for Jerry Lawler?
I worked more with Randy Hayes or Hales, whatever the hell his name was.
Randy Hales. Yeah.
And because Jerry wasn't really there a lot. Jerry only came in on Memphis nights and stuff like that. It was a good learning experience. My first night ever in Memphis, we're in Memphis Coliseum, and Memphis style compared to what I was used to up in the Northeast style was totally different. Northeast style is you get in the ring and the heel calls the whole match. They tell you your comeback. Okay, do this. Sunset flip. You're going to do this now. We're going to go into this. We're going to do that. Down in Memphis, I found out quickly you were on your own. You get in the ring, you want a spot, you have to steal it. Like everyone's fighting, to do what they want to do. I mean, I got in there and Burt Prentice was our manager. And I just let him get like 15 minutes of heat on me because I'm waiting for somebody to tell me what to do. Because I wasn't even in the business a year. I had no clue what I was doing.
Yeah.
So it was great training. It was a great learning experience for me being there, especially the first, couple of weeks.
Wow.
It was a good experience on not just in ring, but out of ring with the ribbon and the joking and the whole camaraderie of being around and just doing it every night.
Wow. So you must have a Burt Prentice story or two.
Yeah, I got a couple of those. We actually, after we left Memphis, we left. When we left, we went home for like a month back up to Jersey. And then Burt called us and said he was starting his own thing out in Arkansas, Ozark Mountain Wrestling.
Okay, yeah.
So we went out there, and that was an experience because we'd wrestle 4 or 5 nights a week. At the end of the week, we were lucky to have $15.
Wow.
In our pocket. And Burt would go into a town, he'd run the town, he would dry it out, he would suck every penny out of it he could, and then he would pack up and he'd move to another town. And he would do it all over again. And meanwhile, here's his guys that were, helping him out, busting our asses, and making absolutely positively no money. I mean, Memphis, we were at least making $40 a night.
Yeah.
There, I remember doing cage match, color, the whole 9 yards, a 45-minute cage match. Biggest house we had ever had down there. And Bert hands me an envelope. It's real heavy. I open it up. It's all nickels and dimes. There's a Post-it in it. It says pay off $5 minus $1 for hot dog, $1 for soda. There was $3 in nickels and dimes in the envelope.
Wow.
Yeah, Bert was he took care of him and the Colorado kid.
So we've heard stories.
And they took care of each other.
Wow. So in Memphis, you talked a little bit about the ribs. Were you ribbed early on, even just a welcoming rib? By the way?
Not really. I think we did more of the ribbing because what we ended up doing was Glenn knew Axel really well, Rotten. So we got real friendly with them and ended up driving up and down the road with them. So I kind of always had my little pack with me. So I was kind of, I guess, kept safe from being ribbed. I was ribbed in the ring, which helped me out because now I rib other people in the ring doing stuff like that. But I got pretty much protected from that.
Yeah. Who ribbed you in the ring?
God, everybody and anybody. From nipple twisting to thumbs up your ass to being little nut shots and not being able to sell it. And just, like Smoky Mountain days with Robert Gibson, I can remember saying to him, Robert, get in the ring. Never feel anything with you. I don't know what to sell because you're not hitting me or anything. Because I believe in contact. I want to feel it. You're going to feel me. And that's just how I am. So the next night, Robert's walks up to me and just punches me right in the eye. And I'm like, what the fuck is that? He goes, hey, you say you never feel me. I want to make sure you feel something. He gives me a big old shiner. So just, stupid fun stuff like that. Nothing malicious or mean. It was all fun stuff.
Yeah. Was it hard to pay your bills making $40 a night in Memphis?
Yeah, it was tough. Fortunate for me, I was single. The only responsibility I had was a car payment. I still lived at home with my parents. So I was real fortunate where if I sent $200 home a month, it paid my car payment, and my mom would just take it and make the payment for me.
Yeah.
I didn't have to worry about it. So, in that aspect, I was lucky, but it was tough, especially in like Arkansas when, we were kind of floundering on a place to live when we were wrestling down in Knoxville. Glenn's dad lived down there, so we were able to stay with him. And then, that part made it easier, but I've been, my whole career, I've been lucky.
Yeah.
It seems like things just fell into place and fell into place and fell into place for me.
Wow. And did you have a degree in teaching or something?
Yeah, I don't have my full degree. I have my associates.
Okay.
I don't have like a bachelor's or anything like that, so it's not like I could walk into a school and teach, but it actually came in very handy when we were in Arkansas and I wasn't making any money because the associates is enough and I had enough credits to do substitute teaching. And there was a guy out there who was a cop who was in with one of the schools and stuff, and I ended up substitute teaching like 4 or 5 days a week, which that actually paid more than wrestling at the time.
Wow. What are your memories of the Northeast Indies?
Northeast Indies. I didn't really do that many Northeast Indies at first. Did a couple ECW stuff where I know we did one after Memphis, ECW, and I remember we wrestled Ian and Axel there. We had a great match, and I overheard Paulie afterwards saying, because Paulie and Larry Sharpe for some reason had some kind of heat. They didn't get along or for whatever reason. And he knew we were technically Larry's boys.
Yeah.
So he goes, yeah, wait till you see what I do with these two assholes. So Glenn and I, basically after that, we never went back. The only really other indie I can really recall was a couple of times when Glenn and I first started tagging, we were doing the Spiders. I remember doing a couple of things with Chris Evans.
Oh, yeah.
And did a couple matches against him actually in Glenn's gimmick.
Huh.
And it was classic because our body types were so much alike before he blew up like a fucking blimp. They were so alike that his mom, actually, when we were wrestling with Spiders, his mom would come up and talk to me thinking I was him.
Oh, man.
But because we didn't really hang around. It was the way my career went. I started that June of 93. By April of 94, we were gone.
Okay.
We were on the road constantly going from we started in Memphis, then went home for like a month. Then we were in Arkansas for over a year. Straight from Arkansas, we went to Knoxville from Smoky Mountain. Then we were home for like 2 months, and we did more Maryland stuff. And then from there, we were gone.
Wow. So, what are your memories of Larry Sharpe?
Larry was a great guy. I can never say anything bad about him. It's Larry's school, so that's where I got my start in Larry's ring. Glenn did all the training. I remember one guy down there training walked up to Larry and goes, Larry, Glenn's showing us everything. You never get in the ring. You don't show us anything. So he goes, all right, I'm going to show you something. Takes him in the corner, lifts his shirt up, and just chopped the living shit out of him.
Wow.
Blood was just gushing down his chest. And he goes, there, you learn how to take a chop, kid. And he got out of the ring and picked up a cigar and sat down and watched. So I knew never to ask Larry or say, how come you never show me anything? But you know what? It's Larry's school. Larry, that's where I got my start. So, as far as I'm concerned, Larry was good to me.
Yeah. When you went up to the WWE and did the squash matches early on in your career, did any of the veterans take liberties with you?
No. Actually, a great story. The very first time I ever went up, which was 3 weeks in, the atom bomb thing, I was nervous as hell. I'm pacing back and forth, and actually Macho Man comes up to me in that raspy, I'd love to be able to do his voice, but I can't do it. That raspy voice, he's like, kid, first time up here? And I'm like, yeah. And again, Macho Man was one of my heroes growing up. So the first time I saw him in the hallway, I'm like, oh shit, it's Macho Man. But he came up, put his arm around me, and he's like, you know what? He goes, you're going to do fine. I'll stand right here. I'm going to watch. I'll let you know how you did. I'm like, no, you don't have to do that. You don't have to do that. It's all right. But when I came back through the curtain, he was standing right there and put his arm around me, and he was like, kid, that was good. You're going to make money in this business one day. And off he went. And that night at the bar, we were sitting there, and he walked up behind me, and he goes, whatever this kid's eating or drinking is on my tab tonight.
Wow.
So, I mean, that was good. And the other positive part, again, like I said, I've been lucky, is Glenn had been going up there for 3 years. So all the guys already knew him. So therefore, I automatically kind of almost grandfathered in without the ribs. Almost got grandfathered right in. So it worked out well.
So I guess you got treated pretty well. They didn't treat you differently or ostracize you because you were enhancement talent or anything like that?
No, not at all. If anything, there was a couple guys, stories I heard that were assholes. I never got treated that way. And that was probably good because the way they looked at it, the perception is the enhancement guys, you need the enhancement guys. If you don't have the enhancement guys, who's going to enhance you at that stage? Because that's before they had competitive matches with all the storylines and the way, shit out the window now.
Yeah.
But you needed those guys to get yourself over. So you were kind of nice to them. You kind of wanted to work with them and stuff like that. So, you need them.
Yeah.
It's kind of how it worked out.
Did you ever have any interaction with Vince at all?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah? Okay.
Vince was great when you were there, but when it was time to leave, Vince wasn't so nice.
Even as an enhancement guy, he was nice?
Yeah.
He was a cool guy?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's good. Were the Click around at that time? Was that when the Click were kind of running the show?
I got there right as the Click was kind of disbanding. When I got there, when we signed our deals, that's right when they kind of split and we had the fake Diesel and the fake Razor when I got there.
Okay.
That's when I got there. So they were just kind of disbanding.
Wow. So when you would go up there and do enhancement stuff, did anybody from the office give you the impression that they liked you and that, we're going to keep our eye on you in the future?
Yeah, and again, the other positive side was a lot of it when we were going up there right before we got signed was Cornette was there.
Oh, okay.
And Cornette, was the one who ended up getting us in there ultimately. But yeah, a lot of the guys would say, you guys are good. Actually, the Smoking Guns, Billy and Bart, when they knew we were there, they would request to work with us. Yeah, which was awesome.
Oh, okay. What were your initial impressions of Glenn, going back to your partner once you started teaming with him and riding?
Initially,
yeah.
Glenn was like, I don't want to say godlike, but everyone at the school at the time, Glenn was the man at the Monster Factory. He was Larry's trainer. He was Larry's champ. He taught you well. He taught you how to do things properly. He would bust your balls if you were dragging or if you were doing it wrong. So everybody wanted to be Glenn. When they went to WWF to do the enhancement matches, do the squash matches, Glenn ran the show. Glenn handled all of us, and he handled with the office and getting us paid. And everyone kind of wanted to be Glenn. So when I went there, it was like, whoa, this is awesome. And then when he came up to me and said he wanted to tag with me, it was like, whoa. It was like kind of like everyone, almost kind of a little jealousy thing ran around the guys I was all training with when we were there, because they were like, oh, well, why do you pick you? And blah, blah. And I'm like, I don't know. I'm not going to say no at this point,
Were there any other notable guys in your class when you were training at the Monster Factory of going on to big things?
Only notable ones, probably D'Lo.
Okay.
D'Lo was, it's kind of funny. D'Lo and his little group of guys used to actually, on Sunday afternoons, would rent the ring out from Larry. They would set up a camera. They would have their own ring entrances. They would go in there and just beat the shit out of each other. And Glenn and I used to sit there we used to sit there and laugh at them.
Yeah.
And then D'Lo somehow ended up going to Smoky Mountain and ended up doing his thing. But he's probably about the only one. Him and, Balls.
Oh, okay.
Balls Mahoney. John was down there doing a Buddha Singh.
Yes.
When I was down there. So yeah, those would be the two.
Okay. What are your memories of when you used to do the spider gimmick?
Spider gimmick was fun. It was awesome. It was good for me because, like I said, I used to laugh the whole time. So the mask used to cover it. The other good thing about the spider was the silly string. We'd come out shooting the silly string, and the promoters used to get so pissed because we'd buy 4 or 5 cases of it, and they'd all sell out, and they had to clean up the thing. So they wanted to start charging us money to sell the silly string. So Glenn and I, after shows, we'd be like, well, we're not paying you. We would stay after the shows and sweep up the entire arena of the silly string because there'd be so much. We were making almost $1,000 just off the silly string, so we didn't mind staying and clean it up. The spider thing was great. I mean, that was my start. That's the first tattoo I ever got. Like that was the beginning, the start of everything.
Did you go to FMW at one point?
Over in Japan?
Yeah.
No.
I guess it was your partner because I remember because I was there once and met one of you guys.
He went to Japan. He's been to Japan twice. I've never been to Japan. That's the one place I still want to go to this day to wrestle. I've never gone over there. But I think when he went to FMW is when he blew both elbows out.
Oh, okay.
He blew both elbows out. When he did a splash off the top rope and dislocated.
I think I was there that night, actually. I kind of remember something like that.
Yeah, he blew both elbows out.
Yeah, and I remember him complaining about somebody doing 5 pile drivers in a row.
Yeah, that was him. Yeah, that wasn't me. That wasn't me. The whole idea of that was supposedly for him to go over and create some angle for us both to go back. But after he blew his elbows, it squashed it, and it never happened.
Okay. So how did you guys wind up in Smoky Mountain?
Who was there that we knew? I think that's when Balls was there, and we got in contact with him, and he got us in contact with Cornette. And like I said, we were in Arkansas with Bert making, like I said, $20 a week. And Cornette was like, yeah, come out and blah, blah, blah. And we got talking to Cornette and just kind of how it happened. And then when we got there, Cornette said, he goes, I don't really like the spiders. And we were like, that's kind of our thing. That's what we want to do. Because I had this other idea. And we were like, hey, we'll do whatever you want to do. You're guaranteeing us $75 a night. We're there. And we went. Cornette came up. That's where the Headbanger gimmick was born.
Wow.
Down in Smoky.
Did you know, I don't know if he had passed away yet, Dennis Carluzza on the Indies?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Dennis was doing the Indies when I first started.
Okay. Do you have any Dennis stories?
Not really. I was too young.
Oh, okay.
And I think I legit, if it wasn't a Larry show run with Dennis, I think I did 2 Dennis shows. And I think those were the 2 I wrestled as the Spider for Glenn.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So Cornette, did you like Cornette?
Love Cornette.
Yeah.
Cornette's a man.
Yeah.
Cornette, like I said, came up with the gimmick. His idea was, he said, I went to this heavy metal grunge concert. He goes, I went to the Danzig concert. And he goes, these guys they had like Northeast attitudes, kind of like you guys have. You're from the Northeast. They're spitting on each other. They're jumping all around. They're doing this. They're just crazy shit. They have makeup on. He goes, that's what I want you guys to do. So we had no clue. So we show up with this black face paint in the locker room. And we're like, Jimmy, what do you want us to do with this? He goes, I don't know. And he picks it up and just smeared it all over our face. And he goes, he hands us 2 T-shirts. He hands me a Slayer T-shirt. He hands Glenn a Metallica T-shirt. He goes, go out there in shorts and boots, whatever you want to wear. He goes, I don't care. Just go out there. He goes, I want you spitting on people. I can remember first match TV going out there and just walking over to everyone in the front row and just spitting on every single one. By the end of the match, I had no spit left. My mouth was so dry.
Wow.
But Cornette was awesome. He was awesome. And he said to us, he goes, this gimmick can be whatever you want it to be. And then Glenn and I kind of went to thrift stores and started buying different stuff. And that's when we were like, I was like, skirts. I'm like, we should wear skirts. We're down here in Knoxville. These people are going to get pissed when we come out in skirts. And that's kind of how the skirts were born. We just bought these cheesy, dumb skirts and went out and just wore them. And it was different. It got people talking.
I'm just trying to picture Cornette at the Danzig concert.
I know.
How instrumental was he with your promos? Did he help you guys out with your promos?
Yeah, he helped. That's what was the greatest thing about the Headbangers is that no matter what we did or what we said, it made sense because we didn't make sense. Yeah. The first interview we ever did, he goes, all right, you guys are the Headbangers. You're Mosh and Thrash are the Headbangers. And we're like, okay. And he goes, I want you to do, because the way it was supposed to start, we were supposed to do a month worth of just TVs before we went on the road. Mm-hmm. But we showed up at the first TVs, and that's when, fuck, what's his name? New Jack and
Mustafa?
Yeah. Trying to figure their tag.
The Gangsters?
The Gangsters. They were there. They saw us there, and they knew they were done. They walked up to Jimmy, and they said, we quit, and they walked out.
Huh.
So it was great for us because Jimmy was like, look, I need another tag. You guys can start right away. But the interviews were great because he would just say, just go there. We'd take the lockers and bang our heads in the locker and go, I'm Mosh, and he's Thrasher. What's your name? And they made absolutely positively no sense. Then we did an interview with Les Thatcher, and it was great because, like I said, I'd have nothing to say, and I would just stand there and start picking Les's nose, stick my finger in his ears, pull his glasses off and put them on. It was just goofy.
Yeah.
And for some reason, people got it. But, yeah, I mean, that whole thing was his. He was just like, just go out there and be goofy, and it made no sense, but it worked.
Did you like Les?
Yeah, Les was great.
Yeah.
Yeah, Les was great.
Did any of the veteran wrestlers, kind of take you guys under their wings up there?
When WWF?
On Smoky Mountain?
In Smoky? I mean, we got along with everyone. I don't know if anyone really took us under their wings. Tracy Smothers was always great in helping us. Ricky and Robert were great in helping us. But probably who helped us the most without even being there was Midnight Express.
Really?
Because Jimmy had given us tapes and said, go home, watch these tapes, take these moves, and make them into your own.
Huh.
And that's what we did.
Wow.
So without them even being there, they were very instrumental in a lot of the double team stuff we did.
Huh. Well, was the gimmick immediately over? Was it pretty successful early on?
Yeah. I mean, we loved it. It was great because you doing an interview, you didn't have to worry about what you said.
Yeah.
There would be times we'd be talking and I would just stop and look around, and it just worked. It just worked. It got over. We got great heat down in Smoky Mountain. people would chase us back from the ring with knives and just calling them names. I mean, here comes two guys from the Northeast, don't sound like anyone from Knoxville or anywhere down there, wearing skirts with face paint on and coming out with loud, obnoxious music. So we used to carry the radio to the ring with this loud and let it play the entire match. We put a tape in and just let it play. So it worked very well. It was awesome.
Wow. Are you guys into heavy metal music?
I'm into a little bit. I used to go to some mosh pit dancing and stuff like that with a good buddy of mine who was really into it. We used to go slam dancing and stage diving and all that stuff. So I'm into a little bit of it. I'm more probably alternative grunge than I am like heavy music. But I mean, I like Marilyn Manson.
Yeah.
I like Metallica, but I also like the Beatles. So it's a big variety.
Was Glenn into it?
Not really.
Yeah.
Not really, but he got into it only because I would make him listen to it in the car, so he kind of get an idea of what it was about, and give you he had to get kind of a clue on what to do.
Yeah. So what are your memories of your matches with Tracy Smothers?
Tracy was just crazy. I mean, one minute he's sitting there telling you he loved you and he would be hugging and kissing you. The next minute he was scaring the shit out of you. You thought he was gonna beat you up. And one minute he was, like I said, loving you. The next minute you thought he was gonna beat up the fan. I think Tracy was bipolar, right? But I mean, I love Tracy. He was great when we were there.
Wow. How about memories of match with the Dirty White Boy?
Tony. I remember one match in particular. Like I said, Glenn and I were watching the Midnight Express tapes, and we figured out this move. If Glenn kind of straddled the top rope, I was on the top rope, he would superplex me on top of him. So we're doing this little spot down. I pick Tony up, I slam him in the corner, and I look down at him and I go, okay, stay there. And I go up, and on my way down, he's moving. And he rolled out of the way, and I saw him, and I went, oh shit, and I had to adjust my way, and I ended up hurting my knee. And I was so pissed. I was in the back, and it's probably the first time I ever walked into the locker room, and I was like pissed. And we had the separate locker rooms. I was like, motherfucker, you fucking asshole. And I was so pissed. And the next day when I saw him, I'm like, Tony, what the fuck? He goes, hey, I know what you're doing. You told me to stay. I didn't know what you're doing. I was leaving. He goes, no way in hell I'm getting hurt because of you. He goes, I don't know what, you guys are crazy. You're jumping off the top rope. He goes, I don't know what you're doing. And at that point, I just started laughing. One of my funniest things with Tony, though, I don't remember who his partner was. We were in Clarefield, Tennessee. And this was such a backwards town in Tennessee. You actually had to go up into Kentucky and come back down through the mountains to get there. And Glenn and I were going. His wife was like 5 months pregnant. She drove down with us for the weekend. So we go in. We're pulling into the town. There's a big white building. It says, long live the KKK. We're like, oh, wow. Great. Here we go. Face paint, skirts. This isn't going to go over very well. Yeah. So we're in a 2 out of 3 falls match. I think it might have been him and Robert Gibson. I'm not sure if it was him or Tracy. But we're in the middle of the match. Things are going. There's this girl. I start calling her a dirt ball. So all I'm chanting is dirt ball at her. So they have the rope around the ring. She comes around it, and she's coming at me. So I'm backing up. I'm like egging her on, figuring at some point security's going to grab her. I'm like, come on. I'm egging her on. She kicks me. And I'm like, all right. So now I grab her, and I'm holding her on the apron. I'm still looking around like, security, hello, where are you? And I'm holding her. Next thing I know, I feel this guy pull me this way and spin me around, and I see him coming. And I just beat him to the punch. And I just clocked him. I broke his nose, his eye socket, and his cheekbone. All with one shot, and the guy just kind of fell right into a chair like this, and the blood was just coming. And I remember turning around going, oh shit. I'm like, what did I just do? I'm like, I'm getting fired now. And I turned, I looked at the ring, and I went, oh shit. And Tony's like, get the fuck in the ring. Get in the ring. So I'm like, all right. So I slide in the ring. He rolls me up. 1, 2, 3. I stand up. He rolls me up again. 1, 2, 3. He goes, get out. And I'm like, so I run into the locker room now, and I'm still like panicking. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I just hit somebody. And everyone in the locker room was like, don't get changed. Don't do anything. Grab your shit and get out. And thank God we did, because about 5 minutes after that, all the locals barricaded everyone in. And Brad Armstrong was stuck. And they said, somebody's paying for what happened in there tonight. They had guns and everything. So if we didn't get out when we did, if Tony didn't tell me to get in the ring and do what he did and then get in the back and tell me just to get out, I'd probably be dead.
Wow.
They wanted to shoot me.
How'd the boys get out of there?
I guess it was all the baby faces were left.
Oh,
I guess when we got done, all the heels were we were last match, all the heels were pretty much gone. And we drove for 3 hours. Because from there, we were driving right back to Jersey. We drove for 3 hours before we stopped. We walked into a gas station and all Headbanger stuff. They changed it all. But yeah, I guess like Brad and them, they ended up talking their way out of it.
Wow.
But yeah, they wanted blood that night. But if it wasn't for Tony, I won't be sitting here right now.
That was my next question too. Was you're working some different towns? Just some stories about the fans in these towns.
They were crazy. They were backwards. They believed, which is what's wrong with the business now. In my opinion, part of what's wrong with it is no one believes anymore. Back then, people believed. I mean, in Tennessee, Arkansas, they believed. When people were coming up and trying to trip you and punch you, and you're running from the ring because someone's got a knife and they're chasing you, you're getting your heat. They believed in what we were doing. They believed that we were hated, and they just believed in what you were doing. There's no belief anymore. Everyone's smart. Everyone knows everything now. They don't believe like they did back then, which is part of what I kind of miss about the way the business is now.
Yeah. Rock and Roll Express, you guys wrestled them a lot. What are your memories of wrestling those guys?
That was awesome. I mean, here's two guys that I grew up watching. 10th grade, I'm at Disney World, family vacation, standing outside President's Hall in Orlando. And I look over, and that's when probably like 9th, 10th, 11th grade is when I was really into wrestling, watching it. And I remember looking over, I look over again, I'm like, oh shit, it's Ricky Morton. So I walked over to him, and he was great. I took a picture with him in 10th grade, the whole thing. And we go to the show, and now here I am, and Rock and Roll Express is sitting in the locker room right next to me. Like, it was just kind of cool. Yeah. But I remember the first time I ever met Ricky, what was the line he used? He goes, I don't like the way cocaine tastes, but I love the way it smells. That was the first thing he ever said to me when I met him. And I'm like, all right, great. So here's a guy I grew up loving. I'm like, great. But they were so much fun getting in the ring with, because they were the epitome of tag team wrestling growing up. I mean, them, Powers of Pain, LOD, Midnight Express, those were the guys back in the old NWA, old WCW days. They were the guys. I mean, getting in the ring with them and bumping around with them and working with them. I remember one time we shot Ricky in. Glenn drops down to hit Ricky with the clothesline off the second rope and just busted his nose open. And I remember standing up going to the ring going, oh shit, I just busted Ricky's nose open. And I just started laughing, and it worked because I got away with it because of the gimmick. But I was more like, oh fuck, that's Ricky Morton. I just broke his nose. I splattered his nose. It was an accident. But it was kind of, like in awe at first working with them. They were awesome.
Did you and Glenn learn a lot about tag team wrestling psychology from them?
Yeah, we learned a lot of psychology. A lot of our psychology was learned down at Smoky Mountain. It was learned there. Memphis was learned how to survive and not get fucked. Because in Memphis, it was, if you weren't Brian Christopher, if you weren't Jamie Dundee or Wolfie D or Doug Gilbert, you weren't getting over unless, you had to constantly protect yourself. You had to lock your bag down, and, because they wanted to do shit to your bag. That was one of the things good about Axel and Ain, is when they were in the ring, we stayed down in the locker room to watch our stuff, and vice versa. A lot of the learning was done in Smoky Mountain.
Wow. You brought up a couple of names there from Memphis. Brian Christopher. Memories, thoughts?
Brian in Memphis was a total Brian as Too Cool, totally different. Brian always had an attitude because, Jerry's my dad, and I can do whatever I want in Memphis. This is my home. I'll be here in 3 months. You won't be. So I can do whatever I want to you, say whatever I want to you, and he did it. And he got away with it because that was his home. But when he got to WWF, it was a totally different story. I can remember Bradshaw got him in the locker room, Nassau Coliseum, duct taped him up, butt naked, pants down, and was going to just act like he was going to fuck him in the ass. And Brian was crying. It was probably the funniest, most humbling thing I've ever seen from him. He was legit scared. But Brian in Memphis was an asshole. You got him out of Memphis when he was in WWF, he was great. He was fun to be around and hang out with. But once he got back to Memphis, he was a dick.
How about PG-13?
Didn't really work them that much. Only did a couple times when they did an angle after we had left, and we were actually in Arkansas with Bert. We went back with Bill Dundee and did some angles with them. But we probably only worked them once or twice, and never really had a big encounter with them. So I don't really have anything really good or bad to say.
No Jamie Dundee stories?
No, I don't have any of his.
Bill Dundee stories?
Not really, because when I hung out with him, he was with what was her name? Samantha Payne, Bull Payne's wife.
Okay.
And we were living with them, and again, there's nothing really. He was nice to us. He wasn't an asshole. I only encountered a few assholes, but he was always good to us. He always tried helping us out when he was working with Burke. He helped us out there, with some strategy and kind of helping out. And then when he was doing some booking in Memphis, he tried bringing us back in, but Randy Hales just had a bug up his ass about us. Jerry Lawler was pissed at us about the first time we were there because they did this match where the Eliminators were there, Perry and John, and they did a match where they said we're watching the show, and they said, okay, Monday night, tag team titles, Spiders lose, they take their masks off. So we're like, cool, we're getting the straps. This is awesome. First time, first belt we ever got like that, major belt. We get there and we're like, okay, you guys are losing, you have to take your masks off. We're like, what? The Spiders, the mask, that's the whole gimmick. How can we take our mask off? And so, well, we want you to take it off. We want you to be Chaz and Glenn, the Spiders, without your masks on. We're like, you serious? The whole thing is the mask. They're like, we don't like the masks. So we said, fine, we'll take them off. So we got on the phone with Larry Sharpe, and we said, Larry, this is what they want us to do. We're not sure what to do, blah, 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 blah. Larry goes, figure something out. He goes, paint your faces underneath. If you really don't want anyone to see your face, if you don't want to do it, he goes, do that. So that's what we did. We painted our faces totally black under the masks. So when the masks came off, no one still saw who we were. We were total blackface. And that Friday night, we were in like Jonesboro, West Memphis, doing a show. And Jerry was there, and we're painting our faces up. And he goes, what are you guys doing? So we're painting our faces. And he goes, why are you doing that? We said, well, you told us not to wear the masks. We put the face paint on it. We came back. Nobody said anything. So you don't want the mask. We're painting our faces. He goes, well, no one can see your face. We're like, yeah. He goes, you might as well just wear the fucking masks then. We went, okay. So we wiped all the black shit off. We put the mask on. That next Monday night, Spiders are in a leave town match. They lose, they leave town. We're like, well, guess we're leaving. And we lost and we left. He was pissed about it. So when we left, and then we had different gimmick ideas of trying to go back, because at the time that was the only territory running besides Smoky, and we couldn't get in Smoky yet. We kept trying to go back with different stuff, and they just never, ever opened the door for us again.
Wow. How about matches with the Eliminators? You remember working those guys?
Stiff.
Yeah.
Stiff as hell. Perry was real stiff. John was kind of easy, but Perry was just stiff. I remember when we left, they actually stiffed us some money because we had an apartment in Memphis. It was like 10 minutes from the Coliseum. It was $250 a month rent. That's all fully furnished, utilities, every washer, dryer, everything's covered, bars on the windows, the whole 9 yards. And they were supposed to give us like our security deposit back and take it over, and they never did. But whatever. But yeah, working them, they were fun to work. They were stiff. That's the first time I ever got knocked out, was one of Perry's clotheslines.
Really?
Yeah, he caught me right in the chin, and as I went back, I hit my head too. So that was the first time I was ever knocked out.
Wow.
They were fun.
So back to Smoky. What was the party scene like in Smoky Mountain?
Party scene?
Yeah, like after the shows.
A lot of it was driving, so there wasn't too much partying. And then when Glenn and I stayed with his dad, so there wasn't a whole lot of partying until the only partying that really happened was actually we drove with Buddy Landell a lot, and then a couple times Dirty White Boy would drive with us. I can remember Tony always had to get the case of beer for the way back, and Tony always taught us to throw the beer cans out the window because we'd start saving them. He's like, no, you got to throw them out the window. You got to get rid of the evidence. You get pulled over, there's no evidence that you're drunk. We're like, yeah. We're like, okay. And then, so it was a lot of driving back, and then we always went back to the house. So we never really hung out. We went to Hooters a lot. That's where there was one of the sponsors. So we used to go to Hooters all the time. Yeah, we used to go to Hooters all the time.
Any good Buddy Landell stories?
Buddy. Yeah, I don't know if there's any Buddy stories I want to tell.
Oh, okay. Fair enough.
Buddy, I will say this. Buddy was great with us. Buddy kind of took us under his wing when he first got there and let us drive around with him. Actually, there's one time where we weren't even booked on a show, and it was in North Carolina. And Buddy was like, hey, why don't you just come, bring your gear. You never know if someone doesn't show up, and you can work. And I'm like, all right, I got nothing else to do anyway. So I drove out there with him. It was raining. I didn't work, but I went out there and I hung out with everyone. I drove back, and Buddy was like, "Here for driving," hands me like $50, which was awesome.
Yeah.
Buddy was great. He was good to us. He like took us in. There was nights where we'd sleep on his floor. Donna, his wife, was great. His girls were great. So, Buddy was a real good guy.
Wow. Are you surprised that Smoky didn't work in the long run? That it wound up closing down?
Yes and no. Cornette's awesome. Cornette is brilliant. I think the biggest mistake that happened with Smoky was running great. It was way up here. And then Cornette went to WCW and it kind of dropped back down. He left WCW, came back. Smoky came way back up because he got focused on it. And then he left. That's when he left and went to WWF. And that's kind of when things started, falling apart. And again, I was still learning. I didn't really, it's so funny. If I think about if I am who I am now, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I think my career would be totally different than the way it went. Hindsight's 20/20. But I didn't really follow the aspects of how, running a company is and stuff like that. But when he would leave, the company kind of ran, not half-assed, but haphazardly. The guys were just kind of doing what they were doing, and he wasn't totally focused on it. Cornette's one of those guys, when he's focused on something, it's going to be awesome. But when he's all over the place, he just couldn't do it.
So why do you say that about your career? What do you think would have been different?
I think the biggest thing would have been when Glenn got hurt, and they called me up and they said, "Oh, we're doing this whole beaver cleavage thing." And I was like, "Great, I don't care, I'm working. I'll do whatever you want me to do." They squashed the beaver cleavage thing. They still had me with the girl. And they said, "Okay, we just want you to go out there and be Chaz." And I went, "Well," I said, "who's Chaz?" I'd never wrestled as Chaz. I wrestled as Spider. I wrestled as a headbanger. I was beaver cleavage. I think the first 3 matches I ever did, I was Chaz. And then squash matches on TV, I was Chaz. But I was getting squashed, so it didn't matter who I was.
Yeah.
And I went, "Who's Chaz?" They're like, "Oh, you're a fun guy from New Jersey. This is your girlfriend." And I went out there and I just kind of went through the motion.
Yeah.
And then they said, "Okay, we're bringing Glenn back. So this is what we want you to do because we're going back to being a headbanger." So I didn't really focus on it. I think going back, I think I would have taken Chaz and created something with him and said, "Okay, here's my opportunity." I think I was too dependent on Glenn, and that was my downfall in the end. After his knee surgery, with him being fat and not wanting to get back into shape and being lazy, I think when I had that opportunity, if I would have seen what I was given, I would have tackled it a lot more and done something with it. I would have put more focus on the girl, got her more involved. I would have tried to get her over more, but I knew kind of where it was going back to Headbangers and tagging. So I didn't put a lot of energy and a lot of thought into it. And
yeah.
I think that was a big downfall. I think I should have taken that and seized it and capitalized on it. And I was young and stupid, and I didn't do it.
So in Smoky, I'm sure you saw a lot of guys come through and wrestled with a lot of different guys there. Is there anyone that you saw there that you thought, more like a younger guy, that you thought, wow, this guy's definitely going to make it, and it never panned out for him for whatever reason?
Not really, because we were actually there the last 3 months they were open. The last 6
okay.
months. We were there the last 6 months. We were there when they closed. We were there the last 6 months. So we were there with, we did the big show in Knoxville when they brought all the guys in. We were supposed to work the Steiners, and the Steiners ended up not showing, which was good for us because we ended up in front of the Knoxville Coliseum or whatever it was. We ended up going over against other guys instead of doing a job to the Steiners, which still would have been great to work them.
Yeah.
But that's when Unabomber was there, Kane was there, Al Snow was there. So it was a great group. So I never really saw guys coming in and out because I was there the last 6 months. We were probably the last guys to come in that stayed when it shut down.
So you were there when it shut down?
Yes.
How did you guys find out and all that stuff?
I think we were at a show. I remember we always blamed it on Tommy Rich because Tommy Rich, it was a Sunday. I don't think it was Cooksville. I don't remember exactly where it was. Maybe it was Cooksville. But I remember we're sitting there and they come in, they're like, "This is our last show. We got to shut down, blah, blah." And everyone in the locker room blamed Tommy Rich because Tommy Rich won the strap the night before. Tommy Rich became heavyweight champ the Saturday night before. So we were like, "Oh, put the strap on Tommy," and company shuts down. So I remember at that point we were like, "Great, what are we going to do?" It took us this long to get here. We were actually getting paid every week and stuff like that. And it was fun. It was 3 days a week, and it was close enough. It was a 9-hour drive home where we could go home, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, drive back down Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And we had a free place to live. Like, things were actually starting to go for us.
Yeah. Is it true that I think I remember reading that Tracy Smothers or some of the other guys tried taking up a collection to help Cornette out?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't really know much about it, but it sounds familiar.
Yeah.
It sounds familiar.
Were you guys surprised when you heard the news, or was it something you saw coming, or something you maybe heard about?
I think we were surprised because we were still young and green, and we had come from a place where we didn't get paid.
Yeah.
So a lot of the guys were complaining they weren't getting paid. And I remember walking up to Sandy and saying, "Hey, can we get a draw tonight?" And he'd go, "Oh, I'll see what I can do. I can't make any promises." But Sandy always gave us our draw. We always got paid. So a lot of the guys were complaining, more I guess the top guys were complaining about not getting paid and stuff like that. But again, I had just come from Arkansas with Burt Prentice where I didn't get fucking paid. So it didn't really matter.
$1.50.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
What were your favorite matches in Smoky?
Favorite matches? I had a singles match with Robert Gibson one time, which was awesome. It just was a lot of fun. Again, here I am with someone that I watched in a singles match with Robert. And it really wasn't anything dynamic about the match. I think it was just a point. And there's a picture at the end of the match. Robert goes over. Glenn and I tried doing a double team on him to go over on him, and he ends up fucking us. We try hitting him with our finish, and he fucks us on it. And there's a picture I have of me sitting in the middle ring just pouting. And I'm just like pouting. But the whole time I'm pouting, I'm trying not to laugh. Yeah. I'm trying to, because Robert was just laughing. That was a lot of fun. Tracy and White Boy were just so much fun. Because Tracy would dance, we would dance. That's how the whole stupid dance is all created. Because Tracy would do something stupid, we would do something back. So those were fun, and that's all we pretty much worked was Tracy and White Boy. Because Tracy and White Boy were in the angle with the Gangsters when we first came in. So when we first started and they left, and Cornette's like, "I need you guys on the road right away." That's who we worked. So we had to kind of finish up their angle. However, we did that, but those were the most fun. They were the most fun because that's who we worked the most.
Wow. So what did you guys do next once between Smoky closing and you going to WWE?
Went home, got back in contact with Axel, and that's when MEWF and was all running down in Maryland. So we started, and we got in with I don't know, Tom Cusati.
Oh yes, everybody knows Tom.
We know Tom. Yes. We got in with Tom, and then Tom took care of us. Tom booked us on all those shows, all in the Northeast. He would take us up to New York, all in Baltimore, Maryland. We lived in Baltimore, Maryland every weekend, probably for, they shut down in what, November? Probably for almost a year. And then we got, I don't remember the lady's name. Al Snow knew her really well.
Phyllis Lee?
Phyllis Lee.
Okay.
Phyllis got us some bookings in like Detroit. And out in Michigan and stuff like that. And we would drive out there, and then we would drive back. And I actually was working at a car wash, and I'd steal the change out of people's cars, and that's how I made my car payments 6 months in a row. $260.66 for the car payments with coins. Wow. But that's what we did. And that's what we did till Cornette called us.
Wow. Did you ever think at that time that I might have to give up on this wrestling thing?
Not really, not at that point, because again, I was single.
Yeah. I
had no responsibility. The only one who had responsibility was Glenn. Because he was married, with the baby, and the other baby then eventually was on the way. But again, I had no responsibility, no nothing. And at that point, Cornette had told us, "Hey, I'm talking to them. I'm going to see what I can do for you guys. I'm going to see what I can do. I can see what I can do." So at that point, I still had no worries. Yeah. I was still wrestling every night, making a little bit of money to get by, and still just trying to live the dream.
Did you find it, just knowing the area, I find it kind of odd that ECW didn't pick you up because you're right in the area here and you had the experience.
Well, that's when we went there after Memphis, and the whole thing with the heat. Somehow there was heat with Paulie and Larry Sharpe. Yeah. And Paulie knew we were Larry's boys, and we had went to that show. Then we went back one more time, and he just kind of squashed us. So we were like, what's the point? If you're just going to beat us up and try to hurt us, what's the point? And at that point, I really, you know what? Those guys are amazing for what they did. ECW, original ECW with the tables and the bats and the barbed wire and the thumbtacks. Amazing. Not for me. Yeah. I gigged a couple times and was like, oh, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. So, like Axel, what he did to his body and the scars, amazing what Taz did. Amazing. Sandman, all of them. Amazing what they did there. Wasn't me. Yeah. Just wasn't. That's not what we wanted to do. So that's another reason why we didn't go back.
Wow. So how did you wind up getting into WWE at that point?
They had started the part-time contract, they called it. That's when they brought in Tom Brady as Salvatore Sincere, Tracy Smothers as Freddie Floyd, Dirty White Boy as the TL Hopper, the Goon as the golf, the hockey player. The concept behind it was we want to have guys, give them a couple wins on TV, bring them into TV, and then have them put over other guys that we're trying to push. Cornette called us. We had our little pagers. We in West Virginia in the rain in a puddle on the payphone, sharing the phone. He got a message, so we called him back, and he goes, WWE was, where were they? They were in Hartford, and then right after that they were like in Maryland. So Jimmy was trying to get us on just to get us a payday to get up there. And he called us and he goes, all right. He goes, I have good news. We're like, all right. He goes, you guys are in. We're like, yes, because we were getting $500. That's $1,000. That's a freaking gold mine. So we're like, yes. And he goes, but I have some different news too. We're like, okay. He goes, I went into Vince. I said, Vince, I got these two guys. Just want you to look at them. Give them a dark match. They're coming up. They're already booked. Give them a dark match. Want you to look at them. Vince goes, Vince is in a good mood. Vince goes, well, tell me something about them. He goes, well, I'm sure you've seen them before. They're the Spiders. They come up with the masks on. He goes, yeah. He goes, I know those guys. And he was like, yeah. He goes, I want you to come up, take a look at them. He goes, I don't need to look at them. Put them under the part-time contract.
Wow.
So Cornette goes, you guys are coming up. You got part-time contracts. And we were like, holy shit. Part-time contract. You were guaranteed the 4 TVs a month, which was $500 a TV. So we're like, guaranteed $2,000 a month. They paid expenses at TVs. We're like, jackpot. This is awesome. Foot's in the door. And then from there, the gimmick we got it over. We got the gimmick over with carrying the radio and just being silly and goofy. And we just kind of took off from there.
Wow. And so did you ever think about going back into teaching right before you obviously got the part-time deal? Nah.
No. When we were in Arkansas, like I said, I substitute taught.
Yeah.
But I did that just to get by. Once I got in the ring, when I had that first match 3 weeks in on WWF TV against Adam Bomb, I remember going home. No, not even going home. I had called my mom from a gas station, and I told her, I just did this, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, you actually got in the ring? I'm like, yeah. I said to her, this is the greatest thing ever. This is what I'm doing. I'm going to be a wrestler. And from that point on, I never looked back at anything.
Did you ever try to get into WCW?
Glenn had a couple tryouts. Right before Cornette called us, we were trying to get some tryouts with them right before we signed with WWF.
Yeah.
But not after that, no. Once I was in WWF, I said, my life is set.
Yeah.
I'm good. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. And that obviously was way wrong and dumb. Again, another thing I would have thought differently if I did it now than I did way back then. But again, hindsight's 20/20. You learn as you go.
Wow. So when you started on the part-time contracts, did you start as the Headbangers? Because I know you did the Nun thing, which I'll talk about momentarily.
Yeah, came in as the Headbangers. Vince has this thing he wants to create people.
Mm-hmm.
If you come in with your own gimmick, he's going to do everything in his power to change it. And that's where the Sisters of Love thing came up. And actually what benefited us was the Shotgun Saturday Nights. They did the live Shotgun Saturday Nights in the nightclub because we were local. We lived in South Jersey. They would have us come up. There was only one live Shotgun Saturday Night we did not do. And that's because we could drive up. They didn't have to fly us in. That's when we were working Doug and Phil, doing all those matches. But they would get us in because we could drive up. We would drive home. No hotel. There was no nothing. And that's kind of one of the ways I think that we got the character over was that. And then that's when Vince had called us up to the office, had us come to the office and had this other idea to say, I want you to do, we need you to go over to this costume lady. And again, we had no idea. We're like, what do we need costumes for? Well, we wear thrift store from the Salvation Army. We wear skirts. And she starts showing us these outfits, and we're like, nuns. And again, we were like, we're here. I'll do whatever you want us to do. I didn't care. So that was funny too, because I remember Vince saying, he goes, okay, we're going to send you over to this church. We want you to do this thing. We'll take a couple pictures in front of the church. This is how perfect Vince was when he was planning. Glenn and I are standing up at the church, and we're standing there, and we're praying like this. And I'm Catholic. I was an altar boy and everything. So I'm sitting there, and I'm going, oh, what the fuck? I said, we're going to burn in hell for this. I'm like, this is crazy. All of a sudden, Vince's timing was impeccable. Church doors open. Here come all the people.
Oh, my God.
And he's got a camera down there. And I'm like, oh, shit. So here I am. I'm 6'2", Glenn's 6'4". We're both 230, 240. These flying nun outfits on. People start dropping to their knees and bowing to us, and they're praying to us. So they look up. This one lady looks up. I had the goatee. Glenn's got his. Glenn's got the nose chain in, going from his nose to his ear with his nose pierced. Lady looks up and she goes, oh my God, it's Satan. You're going to burn in hell. This is not a joke. This is not funny. What is wrong with you, blah? And I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh fuck, oh fuck. We get in the limo. We jump in the limo and I go, oh fuck. I go, what is this? I'm like, what are they thinking? This is fucked up. All of a sudden the visor comes down and Shane turns around. He goes, that was great. And I was like, He's like, that was awesome. He goes, we couldn't have planned that any better. And then they had us do that once. And then the next week we were down in Texas for Shotgun Saturday Night. They were taping down there. And that was like Bible Belt country.
Yeah.
And Vince, for some reason, because of the Bible Belt, wouldn't let us do it. And then I don't know if he got heat for it or if he just wanted to squash it or just see how we when you first get there, everything's a test. They want to test your attitude. They want to test if you complain. So I don't know if it was a test for us. Like they wanted to see how we'd react if we bitch or complain. So the next week they had us get arrested outside the Disney store saying we were staring at little kids in a Disney store. And then they just let us go to Headbangers again.
Yeah. Wow. Texas, was that the one where Terry Funk went off on
yes.
And on this whole tangent?
Yes.
Yeah. Was Vince going nuts about that? Because, Funk's talked about it in his shoot interview and stuff.
Right. I don't really remember it that much. A lot of that stuff, that inter-office stuff and the fights and stuff like that, I kind of stayed away because Glenn and I, and again, another mistake I made was, I've learned that was a mistake, was we would go and do our thing and get out. Because I always thought okay, if I'm hanging around, I'm in the way, and we always like the idea of getting to the next town, and then I find out years later that was the worst thing we could have ever done because that made it act like we didn't really care about the rest of the show and what was going on.
Right. So
hindsight again, 2020, but when a lot of stuff went on, unfortunately, because again, I listened to Glenn. He was like, let's go, let's get to the next town. I was like, okay, and I would go instead of, again, one of those things that I would have learned and obviously do a lot different if it was now.
Yeah. What were your initial impressions of Jim Ross? Because I think he was like the liaison between talent and office at the time.
Yeah, JR was good for us. I don't even know if it was an issue or a thing with JR was if you weren't an All-American football player, he didn't talk to you as much. More of our liaison between the Vince and the office and us was Bruce Pritchard.
Okay.
Bruce was great with us, and I think it started with the Sisters of Love, the Flying Nuns thing, because Brother Love was our manager when we did it. And we got real close with Bruce in that month it was happening by hanging out with him and doing the pictures and the vignettes and stuff like that. JR was more, the guys that played football, they had a name in football and college football and stuff like that. So I didn't really have pretty much everything I did the only time I really talked to JR was when I was leaving, and I wasn't very happy about it then.
Were you guys pretty well received from the rest of the locker room? Or was there like a testing period for you guys?
No, not really, because most of the locker room knew us from going up there for 3 years, doing enhancements. Yeah. So everyone kind of knew us. Everyone kind of knew our personality. We like to rib, we like to joke around, and just like everyone else, we just had fun. We were just all about having fun. At that time, when I first got there, the business was just starting. That's when WCW was up here. And WWF was just starting to take off, and so we were there just the start of like the Stone Cold era.
Yeah,
that's just as we got there. So it was a fun locker room. Everybody got along. It was fun.
How fun was it at Survivor Series '97 Montreal?
Just thinking of that. Just thinking of that because I was going to say one of the guys that was great for us or to us was Brett. Brett was awesome. I mean, Brett we would be in a hotel room thinking about stuff, and we would call Brett and say, hey, what do you think about this? Or, this is kind of bothering us. What do you think we should do? And, we'd sit down with Brett and discuss things with him. We'd play with his kids. But Brett was like, it's so funny because, I have a kid now. I have a 5-year-old son. And it's so funny how you realize things now. Like, I would say to them, like, they thought, oh, the Headbangers are so great. And I'm like, but your dad's Bret Hart. Like, what's so great about me? Your dad's Bret Hart.
Yeah.
Like that one whole what do you call it, story they did on Brett, where if you watch it in the video, Brett says, "Look, I'm busy. Go find the Headbangers. Go play." Like, that's what we did. We played with all the kids. We were like the babysitters because we played with everybody. But that was interesting because, again, we were kind of sitting there, and it was right as we were getting ready to leave when the whole thing kind of went down. So it was just kind of weird. Like, the next day, Vince got the black eye and Brett's not there, and everybody was kind of like whispering about what's going on here, what happened here, what really happened last night, what's going to happen, and did Shawn really know or didn't he know? And then he claims he didn't, but you found out he really did, and how bad. I was close with Earl back then, Hebner, and I know Earl was just eating up about it, because he was like, but he just had to do what he was told to do.
Yeah.
So and like Brett felt betrayed by everyone because he felt somebody should have told him, but in theory, and if you look back at it, the next night Brett was going on WCW. Do you really want him going to WCW and wearing your belt? Like, no, you can't have that at the same time. But it was just tough for everyone because no one really, in my opinion, no one really knew how to react. No one knew how to handle it.
Yeah. Did being close to Brett, did he think something was up before the show or anything like that?
Not really, because he was so involved in. This is my hometown, not hometown, but home country. They were following him around with cameras, doing the whole documentary on him, and he was going over the match with. So I didn't sense anything. I didn't see anything coming up.
Yeah,
I mean, we were there the whole day playing with it, messing around, and we had our match that night, and I didn't sense anything.
Do you think some people think that was a little bit of a work, the whole Survivor Series '97? Do you think there's any part of that was a work, or
what do you mean?
The whole thing about Brett being screwed, that it was all work and it was a way for him
I think
to
that's
leave.
a lot of it's being, like I said, I love Brett to death. Brett was always great for us, but I think Brett was a little bitter after it happened. Brett probably legit felt he was screwed because of the way it went down. But at the same time, you can't have your champion showing up on WCW the next night in Vince's defense of that. He probably felt more screwed because Shawn lied to him. He probably felt screwed because maybe he felt Shawn should have told him. But then again, this is, you got to look at it where this is our company now. You're leaving our family to go somewhere else to battle against us. Why should we have to tell you? That's kind of, I think after a while, that's kind of how a lot of the guys started feeling. Like, Shawn forever denied knowing anything when he really did know. That's like, Earl, like, what are you going to do? If I don't do what I'm supposed to do, then I'm out of a job. You're going somewhere, Brett.
Yeah.
We don't have anywhere to go. We kind of got to do what we're told.
Yeah.
So I think that's why Brett felt screwed. I mean, was he screwed in theory? Sure. But you know what? What are you going to do? Have your guy leave the next night and be on WCW? You couldn't do that.
Yeah. Did you have any static initially with Shawn and Triple H just being seen as Brett's boys?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all. Not a bit.
Okay. What are your memories of doing those shotgun shows when you did those shotgun shows?
They were fun. They were crazy. There was a quick lesson learned. The very first one we ever did, we parked in a parking garage. And like I said, the whole idea was to drive up, do the show, and drive back. Because, it's a 2-hour drive from where we lived in Jersey. Parked in a parking garage, get to the parking garage, 2 o'clock in the morning, it's closed. So we end up spending, I think it was $600 for a freaking hotel room with one bed about the size of this one, real small. And then we went to eat, and we're like in a deli, and I'm like, I want to get a turkey sandwich. It was like $15 for a turkey sandwich. I was like, $15 for a sandwich. So we learned pretty quick on where to park and stuff like that. But they were just fun. They were crazy. People were drinking. You're in a nightclub. They were a lot of fun. We were local, so I had a lot of friends, from North Jersey come up and go to the shows. They just were a lot of fun.
Yeah. What are your memories of matches with the Godwins?
Those were even more fun. Phineas and Henry were a blast. I mean, we worked them, wrestled with them so many times. So many times to the point where the pay-per-view where we had the belts and we were dropping the belts to them. And I'll never forget it, Jerry Briscoe sitting there going, okay, we need to kind of come up with a finish. You guys are going to drop the belts tonight. And, Godwins are going to get the belts. We got to come up with a finish. So I looked right at Phineas. I go, the ass splash I do off the top. He goes, yeah. I said, just catch me, drop me into a powerbomb. And he goes, okay. And I said, 1, 2, 3. And we're like, all right, cool. oh, got it? Like, yeah, all right, we'll see you out there. Jerry was like, whoa, 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 whoa. He goes, this is a pay-per-view. We're like, well, what are you guys doing? You guys got it. We're like, we got it all. We work each other every night for a year. We just go out there and just do it. And that was probably one of the best matches we ever had with them that night. And that's the only thing we spoke about. The rest of it was all out there. It was great with Phineas because when we first started, we were heels. They were baby faces. And he would spit in the air. And, no, this is when the roles were switched. He would spit in the air, catch it in his hand, and wipe it all through his hair. And I would look around. I'd spit in the air. I would catch it in my mouth and swallow it. He would get booed. I got cheered. What's wrong with society? Like, we would laugh about stuff like that. I mean, they were a lot of fun.
Wow. So whose idea was it to finally pull the nun outfits off of you guys and just let you be the headbangers?
I guess just Vince.
Yeah.
It was like 3 weeks. It was a week we did it. We did the vignettes 1 week. The next week we wrestled. The next week was Texas. The next week we were getting arrested. So and they were gone.
Yeah. Wasn't there some promo I kind of remember where your partner threw up on a promo or something?
Yeah, that was me. I puked.
Oh, that was you. Okay.
Yeah, we did. That was part of the fun stuff. We just did it. We come out with the wax. I came out and I had a mouthful of it was like just milk.
Yeah.
And we just came out and it was shotgun Saturday night. We just puked all over them, and that was the thing. We'd spit on each other. We'd hit each other, and I think it was just the goofy attitudes. And it's just dumb. It was just funny. If it made us laugh, we knew it would make other people laugh. So we were all about laughing. People used to ask me walking to the ring, why are you laughing? Why are you smiling? I'm like, I'm in the WWF ring. I'm walking to the ring, and I would see World Wrestling Federation. I'd start laughing, like, holy shit, I'm here. Like, I still couldn't believe that I was there.
Wow. What do you remember as matches with Furnace and LaFon?
Boring. Boring and stiff. They were just we tried everything. It was like pulling teeth to get them to do anything. And they just wanted to go, and just do moves and suplexes and do this, do that. Nothing to do with the crowd. It was tough. They were just boring.
Yeah.
Boring is the only way to put it, and I'm glad we only worked them a handful of times.
Wow. How did things change? Like you were starting to say, you came in right before Austin blew up, and then you were there for that whole thing. How did things change for everybody once Austin blew up?
I mean, obviously we were making a lot more money. It just was great. I mean, everyone knew you. You went, no matter where you went, people knew you. That's when we did like Regis and Kathy Lee.
Oh, yeah.
Like we started doing, different stuff like that. I mean, the business was just mainstream then. I mean, WrestleMania 15 was probably the biggest WrestleMania I was ever in. And that was the one where Tyson came in and refereed the match. The notoriety was just huge. You just couldn't go anywhere. And obviously, the company was making money. We were making money. It was fun.
How was Tyson backstage with you guys?
You know what? This is a great story. I'm going to sidetrack a little bit before I get to Tyson.
Okay.
Pete Rose, my all-time favorite baseball player. All-time favorite baseball player. I'm a Phillies fan, obviously.
Yes.
I grew up in South Jersey, 15 minutes from Veterans Stadium. My grandparents always had season tickets right behind first base. I'd go every now and then with them on the Sundays. We'd sit right there. Pete Rose was 10 rows away from us. I was so excited at WrestleMania 15 to finally meet Pete Rose. I threw out the first pitch of the Phillies game. The Phillies were playing the Reds. Pete Rose Jr. was playing for the Reds. That was 97 because Scott Rowland's rookie year when he won Rookie of the Year because I had a catch with Scott Rowland on the sideline. Pete Rose Jr. came up. I started talking to him. I got real friendly with Pete Rose Jr. We hung out after that a few times and, talked on the phone, stuff like that. I was so jacked when Pete Rose was going to be there. Like, this was it. And I remember sitting out in the locker room in the hallway, and I'm sitting there, and there was a line to take pictures with Pete Rose. And I just kept waiting and waiting and waiting. I wanted to be the last one, which is probably my biggest mistake when you hear this story. I wanted to be the last one because I wanted time, not just, hey, take a picture, hey, great to meet you, you're great, whatever, and leave. I wanted to sit down. I wanted to talk to him. I wanted to mark out for him and talk. I get in there, and he's standing there. I shake his hand. It's great, the pictures, because you see my face. I'm like all happy, and I'm all excited. By the time I leave, I'm like this. Because I walk in, and I go, hey, it's an honor to meet you. You're my all-time favorite baseball player. you're really great. I used to kick out of baseball games growing up because I would dive head first all the time. They told me you couldn't do that. He goes, oh, great. And I'm like, all right. So my grandparents had season tickets to the Phillies. We sat like 10 rows right off first base. We used to yell your name. Used to look over and wave. He goes, did you ever get hit by a ball? I'm like, no. He goes, well, I guess I did my job then, didn't I? I'm like, wow. All right. I go, but I said, I met your son, Pete Rose Jr. Like, I'm just trying.
Yeah.
And I mentioned his son. He goes, oh, so you're the wrestler he talks about all the time that he met. And I'm like, here you go. I'm in. And I'm like, yeah. So that's me. I hung out with him. I had a catch with him on the sideline one time. Blah, blah, blah. And he goes, is there anyone else in line, or is he the last one? Is he done now? And I went, fuck you. And I just walked out. And I walked down the hallway. And the pictures, again, I was all happy. In the last picture, there was like 5 pictures. I was like this. And I'm sitting out in the hallway like this. I was just amazed.
Wow.
And Cornette comes up to me. He goes, somebody just died? And I'm like, yeah, my childhood hero, the fucking dickhead in there. And I was so depressed. And I'm walking down the hall, back to Tyson. I'm walking down the hall, and I turn, and Tyson's got his head out the door. And I said, hey, Mike. I said, I don't want to bother you. I just want to, big fan, I love your fights, whatever. I shake his hand. He was in a meeting. He walked in, and he goes, hey, guys, hold on a minute. He goes, I got to talk to somebody. He came out in the hallway, stood there, talked to me for like 15 minutes, took a couple of pictures, and he was like, all right, let me get back to what I'm doing, and went back in. And I'm like, here's a guy that you would think on TV, when you watch him, is a fucking jerk off. And he worked out to be great.
Wow.
And he worked out to be great.
Wow.
Pete Rose was the jerk off.
Wow, great story. So Shawn left in 98 at that WrestleMania. Was there any difference in the locker room? I mean, any tension going? Any difference in the atmosphere with Shawn gone?
Not really, because the clique was gone. I think most of that was when the clique was there. When the clique left, I think that's when the locker room got a lot looser. And guys, they weren't running the locker room so much and stuff like that. And when Stone Cold was on, had his big run, and, Undertaker's always been there. Undertaker took a little bit more control of the locker room then and kind of split all the little different groups up and stuff like that. So it really wasn't a big difference.
Was Hunter different without Shawn around?
Yeah, Hunter was trying to think of a way, not the right way to put it, but just the Hunter was always good. He was always great. I mean, at least to me, I could always sit down and talk to him whenever I wanted to. I don't know. There was always just something weird. I could never put my finger on it with him. Like I could sit down with Triple H, with Trip anytime and sit down and talk to him about stuff. We'd meet in the road and, eat and sit down and eat together and stuff like that. But there was always just something different or weird there I couldn't put my finger on with him. And still to this day, I don't know what it is. It's just one of those weird. Did you ever meet someone where you go, I like him, but I don't know if it's so much if I want to trust him, but there's just something weird going on there.
Absolutely. Rob Van Dam said on my radio show, he said something like, Triple H is the kind of guy that, he'll ask you how you doing, but that he doesn't care.
Okay. That's it. That's it right there. He'll be nice. He's listening to you, but he doesn't give a shit. Yeah.
Okay. Memories of matches with the Road Warriors.
That was great. Here it is. We're part-time still. On the road, our first 2 weeks of house shows. We're working Aldo Montoya and Freddie Joe Floyd. We're actually doing singles matches on the road. And we're going over every night on the road. We're winning. We're like, this is great. Still part-time. We're wrestling other part-time works. We don't care. We're winning. We're like, this is great. We get to the arena in New York, the old ECW arena.
The Hammerstein Ballroom?
Yeah, whatever that is.
One of them.
Yeah. So we get there, and this is great. It's Monday Night Raw, and we walk in. We're all excited. We walk up to the board. We see Animal and Hawk. We're like, oh, Animal and Hawk are here. We're like, cool. Now again, someone I grew up watching. I can remember them doing the bench press contest against the Powers of Pain.
Right.
So we're like, cool. It's great to meet them. And the lineup goes up, and we're looking down the lineup, Uniform Raw. And there it is. Legion of Doom, Headbangers. We just went, oh, shit. Legion of Doom, first night back against Headbangers. So much for the happy thoughts of, hey, we're getting a little bit of a push going on here.
Yeah.
So Animal came up to us, introduced himself. Joe comes over, introduces himself, and he goes, hey, can we go somewhere and talk? We're like, yeah, sure, let's go talk. And the whole time we're thinking, what the fuck we need to talk about? She's going to squash us in 3 seconds. What's there to talk about? He goes, oh, we met with Vince today for like 2 hours. And we're like, all right, like, good for you. Like, we're trying to be as nice as possible, but, you know, we're upset at ourselves. We're not upset at them. We're just upset at what we think is going to happen. So he goes, yeah, Vince really likes you guys. He's really high on you guys. He says, you guys are the future of tag teams here. And we're like, oh, yeah. We're like, okay, now you're building us up so you can knock us back down. And he goes, so our match tonight, double count out. We went, what? He goes, double count out. We're like, double count out? It's your first night back. He goes, yeah, he wants us to work with you guys. He wants us to wrestle you guys, but he wants double count out. He goes, you guys are the future. We're the now. He goes, we're the now. You guys are the future. He goes, regular match. And we had like a good 12 minutes on Raw. And which, you know, back then was, I mean, even now today to have that much time.
Yeah.
So we get in there. They do their stuff. We got our stuff in. The double count out, the whole thing. And we were ecstatic. The double count out with the Legion of Doom. So later that day, there's a couple stories within this story now. So later that day, we're in the back and they're like, Steve Lombardi comes up and he goes, hey, I got some pre-tapes you guys got to do. We're like, pre-tapes? What do we got to do pre-tapes for? He goes, I don't know. He goes, you got pre-tapes. You're on the list. So we're like, all right. So we go into the pre-tape room. We're like, all right, what are we doing? They're like, all right, we did like a couple generic ones. And we're like, okay, now this one's for WrestleMania 13. And we're like, WrestleMania 13. We're like, all right, what are we kind of promo we doing for WrestleMania 13? They're like, well, you got to talk about your match in WrestleMania 13. We're like, well, time out, back up. WrestleMania 13, we're in WrestleMania. And they're like, yeah, you guys didn't know? We're like, no. And they're like, yeah, you're in some kind of 4-way tag match thing or whatever. So you got to do promos on that. We're like, oh, okay. So here we're wrestling the Legion of Doom. We're not getting squashed. Now we find out we're in WrestleMania.
Yeah. So
later that night, we get our packets. And there's a thing in there where we had to go somewhere in New York. It said Acclaim Sports. You had to go to Acclaim, I think it was. And we're like, what do we got to go there for? And they're like, we don't know. Just, you got to go. So we went there, and that's when they did the head scans for the video game. So all on the same day, Legion of Doom, not getting squashed, WrestleMania 13, our first WrestleMania, and we found out about the, not the video game, our action figures. It was the action figures. Okay. It was Jax. And we found out about the action figures. So that was a good day for us.
That was a big day.
Yeah, that was a big day. That was awesome. Huge.
Did you like working with the Road Warriors?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. They were fun. They were easy. You know, Glenn and I were trained old school.
Yeah.
The old school concept of here's the foundation for a match. You know, every match has a story, is how we were trained. So here's your foundation. Then you got to build the walls. Then you have your peak. Then you have, you know, the finish. So, and, you know, wrestling with the old school guys, going through Smoky Mountain with the old school guys and stuff made it great.
Yeah.
It made it great. And it was fun to work with them again because they didn't have attitudes. They weren't, oh, we're Legion of Doom, we're the Road Warriors, we're just going to kill you. They would do, you know, whatever we wanted to do as well. So it went well. It was awesome.
Wow. How about the Blackjacks? Remember you were wrestling with the Blackjacks?
Besides the fact that Bradshaw just wanted to rip everyone's heads off. You know what? We only worked with them a couple times. We only wrestled them a couple times right around WrestleMania when they came back. You know, they were these two badass Texans that just would come out and just squash you. So they were just brawls. They were fights, but they were fun. I mean, Barry was great, and here you are I'm in the ring with another legend.
Yeah.
You know, and Bradshaw just wanted to fight. He's just a Texan that wanted to fight. So that's what we did. They were just brawls. They were easy. Brawls are easy. You don't do anything.
Who are your favorite guys to travel with? I mean, obviously you travel with Glenn, but did you guys pair up with anybody else?
Not really. We kind of kept to ourselves. That's one of the things we liked about it was to stay out of trouble. And again, I don't know if staying out of trouble helped us because it seemed like some of the guys that got into trouble seemed to get bigger pushes. And I love some of them to death, but they'd be all fucked up and passed out in elevators. The next day they're world champ or something, tag team champs. But we kind of kept to ourselves because we felt that's how we stayed out of trouble. Like we didn't go to a lot of the guys would go out like in Chicago. They go to Crowbar and they would do this and they would do that. I was content going down to a hotel bar, having a drink or two, and just hanging and going to bed.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to get into the whole just bullshit of trouble with, chicks and this and that and the other thing. I thought when I got to WWF, I'm here. I don't want to do anything to mess it up. I had a plan. I want to stay here. I want to end up one day being a road agent. I'm going to retire here. I have nowhere to go. And again, one of those learning curves that I would do all over different, like signing over the rights to the Headbangers to Vince, because again, I thought we were there. We're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
And we had it before we got there.
Wow.
But we made that mistake.
Did you sign over the gimmick right when you first started there, or was that something that you did while you were there?
While we were there, probably like a month or two in.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it was pretty soon, but two things. One thing was, I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. As long as I do what I'm supposed to do and I keep my nose clean, I'm going to have a job.
Right.
It's kind of the theory, the idea behind it. And the other thing is I thought if we would have said no, then we wouldn't have had a job.
Yeah.
So we were kind of like in a catch-26 in one hand, a half dozen in the other. What do we do? So, again, thought we were going to be there, so we signed it over.
Wow. Memories of your WWE matches you had with the Rock and Roll Express?
Those were fun again. I mean, here you are, Ricky and Robert, national TV for the NWA World Tag Team titles. When they were trying to do that whole angle, and then they tried the new and improved Midnight Express. Ricky and Robert were just classic because they made everything look so awesome, and in reality, you didn't feel shit. I mean, I can't tell you how many times that Robert would get in the back and he'd go, Chaz, I was doing this unit song. I'm like, Robert, I can't feel you. Like, if I can't feel it, like that's how I was trained. So they were easy. I mean, just easy. Cake.
Did you like the NWA angle that you guys were doing?
I was on TV. I loved it. I didn't care what they did. I didn't care. But it was kind of funny to go through an airport and pull out an NWA tag belt, and they're like, well, I thought you were WWF. Yeah, well, we are, but, we're NWA. Well, how can you be WWF if you're NWA tag team? We just are. Can I just get through security? Like, it was just funny to explain. But, yeah, I mean, it was on TV. You got the belts. NWA was, the biggest thing, and working, against Cornette and those guys, and it was, like Cornette's kind of his angle, and, it was just awesome.
What are your memories of matches with Owen and Davey?
Owen was classic. Davey was classic. There was a lot of ribbing in those matches because Owen was a big, big ribber. Owen was a humongous ribber. The first time we ever worked them was right after WrestleMania with for the tag belts, because we won at WrestleMania 13. The winner of that 4-way tag match, went on the next night. And I can remember Glenn and I walking around all night going, so what's going to happen? What's going to happen? Wonder what's going to happen. And Owen came up to us at one point and he goes, here. And we're like, what's this? And he hands us those felt bags. And he goes, well, these are for the belts. And we go, well, what are these for? He goes, well, you guys, you won last night. You get a shot at the belts tonight. He goes, so I'm giving you the felt bag, so I don't have to give it to you later. So we're like, oh, okay. So we go back into the locker room. We're like, put these felt bags next to our bags. And we're like, so I guess we're winning now. I guess that's what that means. We're like, cool, like trying to contain ourselves.
Yeah.
And we haven't even been there a year. We're still part-time. I mean, we've been there 6 months. We're still part-time. We're like, we're going to be tag team champs. And then we started talking, and fucking Owen was totally ribbing us and totally working it. But Owen actually drove with us a few times on the road, and Owen was great. He just did whatever he could not to pay for a hotel room and not to eat. And he stayed in our hotel room one night, and he slept on the floor. We're like, Owen, here, you can sleep on the bed. I'll sleep. He's like, no. But he got up the next morning, he's in the shower, and Glenn and I were dancing around with his belt. like little 12-year-olds with the belt. But Owen was great. Davey Boy was awesome. I remember one time with Davey Boy, we're on a flight. We were going overseas. I don't know if it's still this way or not, but once you got into international waters in first class, you could smoke cigarettes. They had the setup was so dumb though. They had the bulkhead area with the vents. You would think if somebody was smoking, they would put them there or have them walk up to that to blow the smoke in there. The guy's 6 rows back behind Davey Boy, and he's smoking and blowing the smoke over Davey Boy. And Davey Boy kept turning around and go, would you put the fucking cigarette out? Like, he just kept yelling at him, put the cigarette. And the guy's like, hey, I'm allowed to smoke. I'm going to smoke. So the guy finally got up. He goes into the bathroom. Davey Boy gets up, pulls his bag down, pulls the guy's bag down, opens it up. There's a carton of cigarettes in there. Puts the bag up. He takes the carton of cigarettes and one by one crumbles every cigarette up right on the guy's seat. Sits back down and he's like this. The guy comes back and he goes, what happened? And Davey Boy's sitting there and he goes, it wasn't to me. I wasn't even there. I don't know. I've been sleeping. It wasn't to me. But you're not smoking anymore, you fucking asshole. It's so funny.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he was classic.
Wow. You guys actually worked Rob Van Dam when he came over with those ECW angles. I think you worked Rob and Jerry Lawler.
Jerry Lawler.
Yeah. Was Rob kind of hard to work with at that time? Was he a little protective?
Yeah, he was. All the ECW guys were very, very protective of their thing. And, I kind of you got to figure, okay, I kind of understand now. But back then it was like, whoa, this is our locker room. Like, it was almost like the TV angle was real, but in the locker room was almost kind of real too, because they had their little cult following, and we were kind of like, okay, you have your little cult following over here, but we're up here.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the theory about it. And he really didn't want to give anything up. And, and Lawler's Lawler. He doesn't care, And so it was a struggle to get some stuff in. But I think overall, the match ended up being okay. It ended up being all right.
What do you remember as a match with the Outlaws?
Those are my favorite next to the Godwins.
Huh.
Without a doubt, Billy and Rhodey. I mean, I just saw Billy 2 weeks ago. Billy and Rhodey by far were favorite matches. And some of the great stories behind it would be they didn't like Glenn. They just didn't like Glenn. They would get the heat on Glenn. Glenn in that night would be bitching and complaining, I'm sore, I'm this. I'd be like, all right, no big deal. I'll take the heat. I'll take the heat tomorrow night. And I'd get in there, and wouldn't take one bump. It was all choking and kicking and punching. I'd be like, what are you complaining about? And he goes, I don't know, maybe I just had a bad night. So he would take the heat again, and they would beat the living shit out of him.
Huh.
They were just fun. I mean, I'd get in there with Billy, and you'd grab a hold with Billy, and we'd sit there and talk about his kids and and stuff like that. Those guys were awesome. But, Rhodey would get in there and do all his dancing, his jiving, all his talking, and then you would just get in there with Billy and just do unbelievable stuff because he's so athletic.
Yeah.
He's just so athletic.
Why do you think they didn't like Glenn?
Because he was lazy. Glenn was lazy. And that's when the business was doing good and you wanted to keep doing better, so you go out there and you just bust your ass even more. Glenn was lazy. He wouldn't go to the gym. Rhodey didn't go to the gym, but that was kind of his gimmick. Like, he was who he was. But Billy was, Glenn wanted to sit there and always joke. And after a while, after I realized it, he was an asshole. And he would act like that. And I didn't really see it at first because, that's who I was with. So I didn't really see it at first. But he was kind of an asshole. And a lot of the guys, I found out afterwards that half the locker room probably didn't like him. And I didn't even realize it.
Wow. What do you remember of wrestling in the Royal Rumble, the one that Vince was actually wrestling in?
I don't remember.
It was when he first started. It was like when he first started the thing with Austin, and he started wrestling. And I think it was like his first like official wrestling match where he was. He might have been number 1 in the Rumble. It's like '99, and then the next month they had the cage match with Austin and Vince, and they had everything else.
I don't remember.
No,
I don't remember it at all.
Oh, okay.
I remember a couple of Royal Rumbles, but I don't remember that one.
Oh, okay. What did the boys think when Vince started wrestling?
I don't think they really cared that much because it was drawing money. Here's the big thing. I guess this is any business. It doesn't matter. Everyone's happy when everyone's making money. If something's going on and the company's not making money and people aren't making money, that's when you're gonna hear grumblings. Yeah. It's like a baseball team. Yeah. If they're winning, everyone on the team's happy. Once they start losing, that's when guys start complaining about stuff. So everyone was making money. Everybody was, whatever it was doing was working. Yeah. It was making money.
Wow. What are your memories wrestling Kai and Tai?
At first they were difficult because there's that communication barrier. You couldn't talk to them. But after a while, they were just simple, easy. They were fun because you can get in there and just throw them around. Yeah. And then Funaki, I ended up getting pretty close with Funaki for a while. Like one time we were down in San Antonio. He had me over his house for sushi. It was actually the first time I ever had like sushi.
Oh wow!
I was kind of scared to have it, but his wife like made it all for us and put it all together. They were easy. Taco was good when we first came in. We were like, "What's this little guy gonna do?" Because back then that's when everyone was still big. Yeah. The only people that really weren't big were tag teams, and here you got this guy coming in who's $180. You're like, what is he gonna do? But he ended up working out. And Funaki came in and they did that whole angle with all of them, and it worked out well. They were fun and easy too. They were fun and easy.
At what point did you sign the full-time contract? Because it sounds like you were under a part-time deal for a while.
Yeah, we after WrestleMania, actually at the post-WrestleMania party, we were hounding Shane. We kept following Shane around. We're like, Shane, so we're still part-time. We're still part-time. And he's like, yeah, I know. Relax. And we're like, yeah, it's something full-time coming soon, or when's it going to happen? He's like, relax. So literally, probably like maybe a month after that is when they came to us. Bruce came to us, Pritchard, with our contracts. He goes, all right, here's your full-time contract. So I was like, cool. We're all excited. Take it home and start reading it. And I realized this isn't a very good contract. Because the part-time contracts we had were, like I said, $500 per TV. All of our expenses were paid at TV, hotel, and car. House shows were on our own. So we get this contract. It's $100 at TV. Plus we're paying for all our stuff. But now we're getting merchandise. That's what happened. We said, we're getting merchandise. We need to have a new contract. Our part-time contract didn't have merchandise. That's when we found out about the action figures and all. So that's when they gave it to us. So we sat down with Bruce. We said, Bruce, this isn't very good. He goes, what are you talking about? And so we explained all that to him. And he goes, well, what do you have in mind? I said, can't you take our part-time contract, just take merchandise and add it to it? He goes, well, don't you want to be here long-term? And we said, yeah, absolutely. And he goes, well, then your part-time contract, you guys can get out in 30 days. All right. Take the part-time contract as it is, 3-year contract, add the merchandise to it. And he goes, let me see what I can do. He came back a week later, and that's what they gave us.
Oh, wow.
So it worked out perfect.
Yeah.
It worked out perfect. But the whole reason we started pushing more for the full, we didn't want to rock the boat too much and remind people that we were only part-time, but we had merchandise coming out. Our part-time deals, we weren't getting paid the merchandise. We obviously wanted to get our royalties.
Wow. I remember at one point seeing a lot of Headbangers t-shirts in the stores and stuff like that. I mean, did your lifestyle change overnight with the amount of money you were making from merchandising?
No. I still remember the first royalty check we ever got. We had done it was the day we did Regis and Kathy Lee. I remember running upstairs. I lived in a little apartment, like a little townhome, 2-story apartment, my mom and my sister. And I remember I had like a little piece of the room just with my bed and a dresser, and that was it. I remember getting the mail, open it up, and it was a $2,500 check. And I was like, holy shit. And all I had on there was action figures.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even so much it was a $2,500 check. It was, I can't believe that many people bought my action figure. I'm like, holy shit, that many people are buying me. Like, it was more of a shocking thing than a life-changing or lifestyle-changing thing. Because the only thing I did once I started making money was I bought a house. My mom and my sister moved in. It was like a half acre. I had a big yard. And what I always wanted, my basement. And that was basically the only thing I did. The only other thing I did was the biggest royalty check I ever got. I went and I bought my truck. I went and bought a 99 Eddie Bauer Ford Expedition.
Oh, okay.
And those were the 2 things I bought. And the only other thing I did was I finished my basement. My basement was bare. I finished it and kind of made that my game room. With I had a pool table, I had a big screen, I had an air hockey table, I had a dartboard, I had a bar, and that's where I started hanging all my wrestling stuff, all my posters and pictures and the action figures on shelves and all that stuff. But other than that, I didn't really do anything extravagant with it.
What are your memories wrestling Mark Mero and Goldust?
Wrestling with Dustin was fun. Mark Mero, not so much fun. He was so high strung, and he had to make sure he got all of his stuff in, and he had to do this, and I had to do that, and I had to do this, and I had to do that. It was like, can't we just go out there and do what we have to do to get over what we have to get over and have fun and make money? And, well, no, I have to do this and I have to do that. So we'd be like, all right, Mark, what do you want to do? And he'd go, okay, now what can we do with the rest of the match? Now we had to actually take what he had to get in and work the storyline and everything else we were doing to have a decent match, to have a decent wrestle match and work it around that. So it was difficult. But the best match we ever had with them was the pay-per-view when Glenn got busted open on the steps.
Oh, okay.
When Mark took him out and threw him up against the steps for God only knows what reason, he got gashed open.
Wow.
That was our best match with them.
Did you ever get a chance to wrestle Austin when he was at his peak of popularity?
other than just being one of the guys running to the ring and taking a stunner.
Yeah.
No. Just one of the 50 guys a night that took a stunner from him. But you know what? I was more than glad to take him.
Yeah. What do you remember wrestling the oddities?
Those were bad. I mean, they were only bad because the only one who knew how to do anything was John. Earthquake. All the other ones were the shits. I mean, you get in there with Kurgan, and it was like, what do you do with them? There's nothing you can do. And then it was supposed to be good for us because that's when Vince Russo was still there, and we got along great with Vince, and Vince had all these great ideas for us, and that's when they brought the jerk offs.
ICP?
Brought in Insane Clown Posse, and those assholes, they literally fucked everything up for us. They had this whole thing going where we were getting a push with the oddities with ICP. ICP was supposed to turn on the oddities, which they did, and come with us. And at that point, we were still kind of working with Billy and Road Dogg, wrestling against them. And the storyline was supposed to get away from the oddities. We have ICP with us, and they were supposed to help us kind of almost against DX. That's when DX was just starting to form. So we were supposed to form our own little thing. They were forming those. And then we were supposed to feud with them. We were supposed to get the belts from Billy and Road Dogg, and it was the whole thing. They didn't like one thing that happened to them at a TV.
Wow.
And they never showed up again. And it just squashed the entire thing. And we went from going like this to all the way back down and just sitting with, okay, the whole storyline squashed. So we have to give you guys time to cool off now to let that die down before we can put you back up. It just killed everything. And then right after that is when they put D'Lo and Mark Henry together, and we started working the three-way tags with them, and then Glenn blew his knee.
Wow.
And that was it. So they totally just killed the push we were getting.
What do you remember of when The Rock started blowing up? You were right there for that too.
Let's see. When he was Rocky Maivia with his big fluffy hair, he would go to the gym with us. He would hang out in the locker room with us and change with us and rib with us and joke around. As soon as he got starting to get a push, he was gone.
Wow.
He had his own. He would change by himself. It was one of those, you'd be sitting there. He would come walking by. He would stop, come back, go, oh, Chaz, hey, how you doing? I'd be like, good, Rock, what's going on? Oh, no. And he would just go on. Like, why bother stopping? I'd rather you just keep running, walking, and ignore me than to pacify me with the, oh, I should stop and say hello to you.
Yeah.
And then at the gym, like I said, he would work out with us. We rode together with him and D'Lo and everyone, and he would hang out, and then all of a sudden he was gone. It's like he was gone. Wow. He was too good for everyone.
Was Austin the same way? Or
no, Steve was total. Steve was Steve. It didn't matter. He was down to earth. Let's go have a beer. Let's sit down and bullshit. If everyone's playing dominoes or playing cards, he was sitting right there in the middle of it, and he got changed in the locker room with everyone. When he had to do his stuff, he went and did his stuff, but he was still one of the boys. He hung with everyone all the time. Steve didn't change a bit.
Wow. Was it a weird time? I'm not sure if you guys were there. I think you were there at the time when Hunter was still dating China, but then he was hooked up with Stephanie. Oh, you were gone?
I was gone.
Oh, okay.
I was gone then.
Okay. What do you remember as a match with Hardcore Holly?
Bob was stiff, but see, a lot of it, the fun part, I say a lot of my fun matches were guys because they wrestled old school.
Okay.
They wrestled old school. It wasn't all high spots and flipper. Loved the Hardys to death. I loved Edge and Christian to death. I still talk to Matt, but a lot of Matt's calmed down a lot. He's got a lot of psychology in his matches now, but when they first came up, it was just flipping high spots that made no sense. And I was brought up with a storyline. You know, the match had to make sense, the psychology of what you were doing and stuff like that. So Bob's old school. So I love Bob. Got along with him great. And again, nothing bad to say. He did awesome, but it was stiff. Bob's stiff as hell. But then again, I'm stiff. I like people used to complain, but I like that. I want to hit somebody. I want to feel it. I want to feel them. I want to feel them hit me too. So I know what I'm doing.
Yeah. Did you like doing the hardcore matches?
I wasn't crazy about it, but I would do them. Yeah, I'd do whatever they wanted me to do. I wasn't crazy about it. I wasn't crazy about getting hit in the head with a pan or a cookie dish or a chair or a a stop sign or whatever, but I did it.
Yeah.
I did whatever they wanted me to do. It didn't matter to me because I was getting paid. That's how I looked at it.
Yeah, you mentioned Vince Russo earlier, and it sounded like you liked him a lot when you were there. Did he ever try and recruit you to jump over to WCW when he was there?
No. What happened with Vince Russo was, what happened at the end with me was they said they did the whole, and I'm sure you'll probably get to this later, they did the whole D-Lo thing with Tiger Ali Singh with the turbans and all that bullshit. And Tiger got hurt, and they said, okay, well, we're going to send you guys home until he's better. And D-Lo and I begged, just let us do house shows. He wasn't talking anymore because he was mad at the people for disrespecting him. Let us go out there and get that angle over. And when he's ready to come back, they're like, no. So I'm like, I was just off for 6 months. I don't want to be off again.
Yeah.
You know, we're finally back on TV. We're finally doing something. D-Lo and I were gelling. Like, you know, D-Lo and I have been friends since high school. Like, we're gelling. Just let us go. They're like, no. So then all of a sudden they said, I had about 9 months left on my contract, I guess, 8 months. And they said, all right, we're sending you to Puerto Rico. Want you to get back in ring shape to bring you back up to TV. I'm like, all right, great. So I said, well, you know, we got down there. We did a couple of shows. We didn't get paid yet. So we called the office. We're like, well, what about pay? Like, well, you're getting a weekly check. I'm like, yeah, but I have a mortgage in New Jersey I'm paying. I have expenses there. Plus now you're making me live down here. Like, I'm paying double mortgage, stuff like that. They're like, yeah, well, this is part of the deal. So I guess the whole thing with that was, you know, we did all that. And then this was in now July of 2001. They were in Philly doing TV. And I said, can I come up? Let me do a dark match and get me back on TV now. So they said, okay, fine. So I went up. I did TV. I had a great match up there. Next night was in Baltimore. I sat down with JR and I said, all right, JR. I said, so what's the deal? You know, when you bringing us back? We've been down there almost 6 months now. You know, I'm almost going in debt because you're only giving me my little bit of money.
You were getting paid at all when you were down there?
I was getting my guarantee.
But
my guarantee I was basically paying 2 mortgages. It was nothing like, if I was on the road, my guarantee was meaningless.
Yeah. But
when I was not working, my guarantee was great. But, you know, now I'm down and trying to survive in Puerto Rico, plus taking care of a house in New Jersey. You know, it was tough. So he said to me, he goes, well, creative doesn't really know what to do with you. And I went, what are you talking about? He goes, we don't really know who Chaz is. And I go, I don't know who Chaz is. I said, you got me doing Headbanger, you got me doing a Sister of Love, you got me doing Beaver Cleavage. I said, then you tell me to go out and be Chaz. And I'm like, I don't know who that is. Like, I didn't know what to do. So he goes, well, creative doesn't know what to do with you. And I go, great, let me go back to being Mosh. Everyone knows Mosh. It's a character. It's something that comes natural to me to be goofy and silly. And, you know, yeah, but that's Headbangers. That's a tag team. I'm like, so let me do it on my own. Let me take Mosh and recreate it. No, we'll see what we can do. Go back to Puerto Rico. We'll talk to you. So I'm like, all right, go back to Puerto Rico for 3 more weeks. And I go, is creative doing anything with me? He goes, no, they can't come with me. I said, I'm leaving then. So I went home. And that's basically when they said, unless we can come up with something for you when your contract expires in January, we're not re-signing you unless you come up with something. So in the meanwhile, I'm thinking, okay, let me keep sending in ideas. I'm watching Raw every week. Where can I fit in here? Where can I fit in there? That's when DDP was there doing that big smile thing. So I said, oh, here's a cool thing where I can get involved in it. I sent this big idea in about having a counterpart come in and try and get in with DDP. And they're like, yeah. They're like, this is great. Yeah, this is a great idea. Let's see how we do it. 2 weeks later, Christian's doing it with DDP on TV. I'm like, you're killing me. So in the meanwhile now, WCW was gone. Vince Russo was just getting his foot in the door with TNA. When TNA was just to start the talks, they were doing some stuff overseas, over in Australia, with what's his name, Jeremy Boresh, whatever his name is. Yeah, doing all that stuff. So Vince calls me up. He goes, Chaz, they're not using you. How about you come and go on these tours? I'm like, great. I'm like, but I'm still under contract. I'm like, you know, help me here. I don't know what to do. He goes, see if they'll let you out of your contract. He goes, ask them to pay you what they owe you and let you out. I'm like, okay. So I called JR and I go, can you just pay me and release me? Since you're not re-signing me, at this point it was October. I said, my contract's up in January. You've already told me you're not re-signing me. Will you just release me? And he goes, well, what are your plans? I said, well, I want to do other things. I just don't want to sit here. You know, I want to go and do other things. And I said, can you pay me what you owe me and just let me go? And he goes, no. And I said, all right, well, I have an opportunity I said, to go somewhere else and work. Can I go do that then? If you do that, you're in breach of contract, and then we don't have to pay you. And I'm like, well, what's the big deal? If you're not going to re-sign me, why can't I just go and do it? And if you keep paying me anyway, like, just let me go do it then.
Yeah.
And he goes, well, if you get hurt and you're under contract with us, then you could hold us liable. I said, I'll sign a form that says you're not liable for something. Send it to me now. I want to go work. Like, you're telling me I'm done with you, with WWF is done with me. I'm done with them. I want to move on to fucking something else, and you're not letting me do it. And then I guess, again, another thing, I probably should have said, you know what, fuck it, I'm leaving. Don't pay me then, and going off there and make money. But I guess in the back of my mind, I still thought if I keep sending in ideas, something's going to catch, and they're going to re-sign me.
Yeah.
And then they didn't. And then right after that is when I moved to Florida. I kind of lost contact with Vince. And then TNA was starting, but they weren't really running that much when they first started. So I couldn't really, and they were in Nashville then. They weren't in Orlando. They were in Nashville. And Vince was like, look, you're lucky to work once or twice a month. You know, we're just getting started. You're not really going to make any money. I had just moved to Florida. I was having a house built. I was getting ready to get married and start a family, and I couldn't. I had to go get another job. So that's when I kind of like got away from the business for a little bit.
Yeah.
But that's kind of happened with Vince, and he never had a chance to get me in WCW because I was under contract and he was there, and then, you know, Vince bought him out.
Gotcha. There was an ex-WWE writer. I don't know if you heard about this or if somebody said this to you. There's an ex-WWE writer. I forget what his name is, but he does a blog. And he said that there was a lot of commotion because at WrestleMania 17, you guys, you and Glenn did an interview on WWE.com where you gave away the result of the Austin Rock match. He said that you guys did an interview and somebody said, who do you think is going to win between Austin and Rock? And one of you guys said, Austin's going to win. Austin's going to win because we're in Texas and The Rock's leaving to film a movie. And he said that like everybody was scrambling back there because they're like, holy crap, you know, I give away.
If that was said, it was probably Glenn.
Yeah.
But it was probably said more as a joke. I mean, I never knew any of the finishes.
Yeah.
But if it was, it would have came from him because that's something he would have said to try to be funny.
Oh, okay.
Be like, look, we're in Texas. Of course, Stone Cold's going over, and everyone knows Rocky's going to do a movie. So what do you think? Yeah. So if it was said, it was probably said like that.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't malicious at all. And that was part of Glenn just being an asshole, not knowing when to shut up.
So is something you guys get any heat for or anything like that?
Not that I'm aware of, no. No.
The writer said that everybody was scrambling, but then nobody said anything to them from the office, so they figured everything just died down.
Yeah, I've never heard anything about it.
Anybody say anything to you guys? What are your memories of matches with the Dudleys?
Those were a little awkward
at
first. I mean, we only did a handful of them. And it was actually kind of funny because that's when Glenn came back. They were there, and we were kind of doing the thing of making fun of people, dressing up as them. And And the big highlight for me is I'm a huge Adam Sandler fan. And I remember going out there one night making fun of their stutter. And I'm like, I did Adam Sandler bit where from The Waterboy. And I went out there and I said, my mama told me alligators are army because they have all them teeth and no toothbrush. And I remember Bubba actually getting pissed at us for that. And then Bubba got pissed one time because we used a bell. And I really clocked him with the bell.
Did you really?
It wasn't on purpose, but I mean, you heard it.
Yeah.
But Bubba was Devon was more easygoing than the Bubba. Bubba was another one where I have to get my stuff in. I have to get over. I'm going to take advantage of you. And stuff like, and again, I love both those guys. I still talk to Devon.
Yeah.
But Bubba was more of and you know what? It got him to where he is now. So, I mean, it worked for him. I guess you got to have, and Glenn and I, we didn't have somebody like that. We were both more like, okay, this is great. What do you want to do? Okay, we're going to go out there. We're going to do it. We're going to have a great match. We're going to entertain the hell out of these people. We're going to have a good time. Bubba was, I got to get this in. I got to get this in. I got to get this in because this is what's going to get us over.
Yeah.
And Glenn and I didn't worry about it. We worried about it. People were laughing and joking around and they had a good time. So again, they were awkward because it was more like, all right, Bubba, what do you have to do today?
Yeah.
All right, great. Okay, let's work around that now and let's try to have a good match and get around what you have to do instead of trying to think of the whole thing. He just focused on himself. But again, fuck, it worked for him.
Yeah. What are your memories of matches with the Quebecers?
Those were painful. Those were painful because, especially one we did, I remember Jacques put a show on in Montreal. It was an indie show that had nothing to do with WWF. And that was just so bad because it was his show, his family, and his town.
Yeah.
And, again, I didn't care. I got paid the same no matter what happened. So, but Jacques was, I don't know, it was just different working with him because he had a different style than what we were used to working with. So it made him more difficult. But the other one, I don't remember his name.
Pierre,
he was easy. He was, whatever you want to do, we'll do. And it was easy. His part was fun. Jacques was a difficult one there. He was just, styles clashed, and for whatever reason, it just made it more difficult.
When business got better, like when Austin took off and Rock took off, the guys become more protective of their spot, or like you said earlier, were guys just happy that everybody was
guys were just happy.
Business?
Guys were just happy. I think more of the spot protecting, people started getting worried about their spot was when Jericho came.
Really?
I think that's when more of that happened. Because everyone looked at, the good part about the whole Monday Night War thing was we'd get back to the hotel, we could watch Nitro.
Yeah.
And that's what we would do. Everyone would watch Nitro. And everyone commented about Jericho. His interviews were funny. His hair was funny. He's always changed his hair. He always changed his facial hair. Like, he always did something different. But when he came, and when some of the guys heard, again, rumors, I don't know what it was, but the figures he was getting paid. And when he first came in, he was reckless. He was hurting people. That's when a lot of the guys were like, whoa, like, okay, this is bullshit now. Like, we have a great camaraderie. Everyone's making money. Everyone's happy. Everyone's getting along. You're bringing in an outsider now who's kind of screwing it up.
Yeah.
Things got a little bit testy right around that.
Wow. So was there kind of a feeling out period for the locker room in Jericho at that point?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it wasn't good at first.
No. It
wasn't good at all at first.
Did Vince change once business got better and he kind of got back overtaking WCW and that whole thing?
I don't know, because once he took over WCW, I was gone.
Or I mean, like once he started beating them in the ratings.
No. Vince, here's my take on Vince. When you were there, you were under contract, Vince was awesome. Brilliant, obviously brilliant businessman. Brilliant. Can take somebody within a week and make them a star. When you were there, Vince's office door was wide open all the time. Once you weren't there, door was fucking glued shut, and you couldn't get through with a jackhammer. I can remember when they took, JR said, this is what's going on, blah, blah, blah. I tried getting a meeting with Vince up in Stanford up at the headquarters. And Glenn and I used to go up there. We, lived 2.5 hours away, so we used to go up there all the time. We'd go up there. They actually gave us our own magnetic key card to get in and out of the office. And we'd go up there and we just grab merchandise. And, Beth, Vince's secretary, we got along great with her. We did whatever we wanted in the office. We used to walk in there, walk right into Vince's office, sit down with Vince and talk to him and whatever. Once, it was known that I wasn't being re-signed, Vince wouldn't give me the time of day. It really pissed me off. I'm like, fuck, when I'm here, and I even said it to Beth, I'm like, Beth, when I'm here, all day long, he would talk to me. She's like, Chaz, he's busy. I'm like, he's always been busy. But all of a sudden, he just, time of day. Talk about like a total 180 of being, a great guy to just turn around and just being a fucking jerk off to you. I mean, that was Vince at that point. When you were there, he was awesome. When you weren't there, he didn't have time for you.
Were you worried when your partner got injured, or did you see it immediately as an opportunity for yourself?
No, at first we were worried, but that's when Bruce came up to us. When he first got hurt, we were very worried because we knew to reconstruct the surgery, he was going to be out 4 to 6 months. That first full-time contract we had 6 months remaining. So we were a little bit worried, like, oh shit. But we were in San Antonio. Bruce Pritchard came up to us and he goes, here's the situation. Glenn, you're going to be out. Blah, 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 blah. We looked at the money you made the last year. So here's a new contract. We want you guys to go home, relax for 4 to 6 months, take care of what you got to do, enjoy your time off, come back better than ever. But we want you to have security that you don't have anything to worry about. That's when they gave us our first guaranteed contract.
Wow.
That was the first one. So they gave us security of, hey, and then about 3 months into it is when they came up with the whole beaver cleavage.
Yeah. That's where we're going now. Who came up with it, or who called you?
Bruce called me again. Bruce was always our guy.
Yeah.
Bruce always came to us. From what I understand, it was a Vince Russo thing. That's when the whole sex thing was taken off. That's when Sable was always coming out half naked, and all that stuff was happening. Owen was doing the blue
Blazer.
The blue blazer. He was doing that whole thing. Like, I'm going to make the WWF better. Taking all the sex and dirty stuff out, and that's when Russo was getting really, with the girls making out the GTV stuff and the showers. So that's when they came up with that whole thing. I was actually down in Baltimore doing shows, and Bruce called me, and that's what he said. He goes, "We had this idea. This is what we want to do," and it actually came from Jerry Briscoe, because my passport picture was from like 1994, and Jerry Briscoe always used to joke around saying I look like the Beaver. And then Bruce and him always used to joke, calling me the Beaver, and that's kind of where that came from, and them joking about it, and then that's when Vince Russo got his hand to it and came up with the whole idea.
Wow! Did you like it when you first heard about it?
I don't know if I was thrilled about it, but then again, I didn't care.
Yeah.
I was there, I was working, and when I started doing it, it was fun because I had a direction to go. I had something to do. I knew, like, the Headbanger thing wasn't so much a character. It was natural. It was easy to the way we do it. This was like, okay, I know what I have to do. I can be, again, I'm acting like a 12-year-old kid. I'm putting my head in some girl's big boobs, and I'm doing this. We're making sexual innuendos about cucumbers and my mother having sex and milk, and that kind of the whole thing, the whole way it was going. You know what? I didn't mind it.
Yeah.
Again, I didn't mind it. I was on TV. I was getting the push. I was working. I was in the ring. I was happy.
Yeah. Was Glenn paranoid?
He was paranoid.
Yeah.
They wanted him to be Doink, come back as another Doink. So, and he was supposed to be like an evil clown, like kind of a different outfit. They didn't want him to shave anymore. They wanted him to grow his hair in because they knew he was balding. He only had hair like around the back and the sides, and they wanted him to let it grow in long and like kind of like be an evil clown sort of thing. So he was more worried, and that's when he just blew up like a balloon.
Wow. So if the beaver cleavage thing worked out, where did you think that it would have went? Did you have a program that you were going to get into?
No, I mean, the only thing I knew was the few vignettes we did, and the whole idea of it was they were leading into going to start insinuating that I was having sex with my mother. It's kind of where it was going. And from there, I didn't know where it was going to go, but I was happy to do it.
Yeah.
Here I'm doing single stuff I've never done. And I always figured from there, you know how it is, you just create something else.
Yeah.
You got to keep reinventing. And again, I didn't know and I didn't care. I just went along with it and did it.
Did you think that it was going to work out?
I didn't really know. I mean, I only did like 2 matches when they squashed it, because that's right when Owen had his accident, and then all these other bullshit came up with Sable with her sexual harassment stuff. So they just squashed it immediately. So
was she sexually harassed back there?
As far as I know, no.
Yeah.
As far as I know, no.
Was she ribbed pretty hardcore?
As far as I know, no. Seriously, as far as I know, none of the girls were. But then again, I kind of was over here.
Yeah.
Like everyone was over here. I kind of stayed away from any kind of drama, figuring that was the best at the time. Figuring that was the best thing to do.
Yeah.
Because that would keep my name out of any kind of shit. But then again, I found out a lot of guys that were around drama and trouble, they're the ones that were always in the mix of stuff. So.
Are you surprised that even to this day people still talk about the beaver cleavage gimmick?
No.
Yeah.
No. Because most people talk about it now, thinking because of the way they did the angle on TV where I walked off live on Raw and said, I can't do this anymore, this is dumb, and I walked off, think that I really don't like it.
Yeah.
I don't like it. I don't not like it, and I don't like it. I just, I was there to do a job. I was there to entertain and wrestle. And no matter how it was or what it did, that's what I was going to do. But I think a lot of people bring it up thinking I'm going to get aggravated and pissed off about it. It doesn't bother me a bit.
Yeah. Did you think you had good chemistry with Mariana? Or not?
No.
Okay.
And the reason for that is partly, again, my fault. I never really, like I said earlier, I never really went with that because I knew where after they killed beaver cleavage, They said, you're just going to be a guy from Jersey. We're going to work you back in to get Glenn back in, put the Headbangers back together. And so I never really put a lot into it. And again, that's one of those things that if I look back, if I would have put more into it, more effort into her, bringing her into it, she was weird too.
Was she?
Yeah, she was weird. And then she started sleeping around with some of the guys. God rest her soul. She's not with us anymore. But
that's right. She did pass away.
Yeah, she passed away. She had breast cancer.
Okay.
She had breast cancer and passed away. And again, I don't want to sling mud on her grave or anything, but she started doing some things that I didn't agree with. And I kind of told her when she first came in to stay away. And she didn't listen to me. And that kind of pissed me off. And so I kind of didn't put a lot of effort into it, which was probably a mistake on my part at the time.
Yeah.
You know, what are you going to do?
What are your memories of matches? Didn't you have some matches with Sean Stasiak at the time?
Yes. Meat.
Yes.
Yes. Those were like pulling teeth also because Sean came in, great guy, great amateur background, but had the charisma of fucking Doug and Phil.
Yeah.
I mean, he had none. The good part and fun part about that was he was surrounded by the girls with Jackie and Terry, and, you know, they were fun and easy to work with. And then I'm trying to now coach Mariana on what to do and how to do things, and it was difficult. It was difficult. Again, Stasiak, great guy, just the best personality in the ring.
Yeah. What did you think? Did you ever hear that story that he would tape the boys when he was like going on road trips with them?
Yes.
Yeah. Is that something that you could believe, or?
I believe it was true.
Yeah.
I believe it was true.
Okay.
I believe it was true.
Did you ever ride with them?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
Oh. Did you prefer going back to the Headbangers, or did you kind of like working singles at that point?
I would have loved the idea, I would have loved the opportunity to continue to try and do some single stuff. But once they said, again, my own mistake, once they said, hey, Headbangers, you know, putting you guys back together, I kind of stopped focusing on that and focused back on Glenn coming back. But then when he came back like he did, sloppy and out of shape, and Vince's philosophy is, and he's absolutely right, if you're off, you better come back in better shape than when you were there because you have nothing to do but take care of your body. And Glenn literally sat on the couch and ate double cheeseburgers and chicken nuggets.
Wow.
And blew up to like 270, 275, couldn't move, didn't go to therapy half the time, and just turned into a freaking lazy turd.
Oh. Are you still friendly with him today? Or? No.
I tried keeping in contact with him for the longest time, and then it was probably about 3 or 4 years ago. Flew up here in the Philly to go to my brother's for a weekend. My son was in the stroller, and my wife had my phone, and she put it in the back of the stroller. When I picked up the stroller, threw it in the back of my brother's truck, I didn't realize the phone was there. By the time we got to his house, the phone was it's still somewhere in the Philadelphia airport. And the reason I say that is I kept trying to keep in contact with him, but his number was on that phone, and now I don't have his number, and he's never once in those 3 or 4 years reached out to me.
I'm surprised that with the conventions, nobody tried getting you guys together for conventions and stuff like that.
They tried. Ken tried. But again, I have no way to get in contact with him.
Yeah.
I have no way to get in contact with him.
What are your memories of matches with the Mean Street Posse?
They were only, I say challenging only because Pete, I love to death. I still talk to Pete every now and then. Pete and Rodney tried so hard, and they wanted to make it so bad. Every little thing they did, they wanted to be almost choreographed, and I hate that word choreographed.
Yeah. Because
I'm old school, where I just want to go out there, I want to feed off the crowd, do that. But with them, it had to be step by step, and that's what's wrong with the business today. My opinion is everyone wants to get in the ring and walk through their spots and do this and do that, because what happens with that is if one spot gets screwed up, you're done. Especially someone green like that who's just breaking in, they don't know how to recover. Just going feeding off the crowd and just going by the the fly of your pants, it makes it easier. But they were great to work with. They really tried. They wanted to learn. It was just hard to do it because I wasn't that way, and I would get frustrated with them. And they would say, "Well, what about this? Well, what if we do this?" And then after the match, literally, it was longer than the match to sit there, and they wanted to go over each spot over and over again of how they did this, what could they do different. It's great that they were that excited and they want to do it, but for other people, it was just a pain in the ass. And again, love Pete and Rodney to death. Like I said, I still talk to Pete today, but it just made it difficult. Great guys, great fun to work with, just was difficult because they were learning.
Yeah.
They were learning, and you know what? They wanted to learn, and they wanted to do the best. So you can't fault them for it. It was nerve-wracking.
Is it fair to say that it had to be frustrating because I'm assuming, everybody that's in the WWE is there for a reason. They're not learning, they're seasoned, they're ready when they're there. And I'm assuming this is the first time you had to work with somebody that wasn't ready. To a point.
To a point, yeah. To a point. But again, you know what? The big difference is there's other guys that would come in from different professions who just acted like I'm a big shit and I know this person, that person didn't want to try. They were different because they got in there and they wanted to try. They would say, Chaz, can you come down and just work out with me in the ring? And Pete would even say, Chaz, come up to Stamford, the ring. Can you come up and work out with me? I know you're on the road. And they wanted to learn. They wanted to be better. Like Pete was down in Puerto Rico with D'Lo and I for, the 3 or 4 months we were down there. And we did tag stuff with him and all. The difference is they wanted to learn. They wanted to be better. They just didn't. They didn't act like, oh, well, we're Shane's friends, so we don't have to do anything. They were like, okay, we need to earn why we're here, and we need to earn our stripes, and they did.
Yeah. What was the whole idea? I mean, maybe you know, maybe you don't know behind GTV. It seems like it's something that kind of just came and went.
I don't know exactly where it was going. I think the idea at first was they were gonna have somebody behind it. I don't remember exactly. I want to say Goldust only because of the G off the top of my head.
Yeah.
And then something happened where the person left, and then it was like, okay, where are we going with it now? And then maybe it was like a Val Venus thing, something like that. But then it ended up just getting squashed. And a lot of angles got squashed when Vince Russo went to WCW. Any angle storyline that Vince was involved in just got squashed. Like all of that's when we were working the New Age Outlaws.
Okay.
And we were doing all that stuff too. And then that's when the posse left. And then Vince Russo left, and anything that had Vince's finger on it was just wiped clean, was gone.
Wow. Did you have any problems when you when they asked you to dress up in drag?
No.
Drag? Yeah.
No, actually, how that came was Vince was like, "We're like Vince, what's going on? How come you're not using us? We're not on Raw anymore." And in the back of my head, I knew it was because Glenn was so out of shape, and he was slow, and he lost a step, and he wasn't even trying to get back into any kind of anything. And Vince was like, I don't know. He goes, you guys, when you first came, you guys were energy and you did this and you were different. He goes, guys aren't doing anything different. And we're like, all right, what can we do? And he goes, I don't know. He goes, why don't you come out with cones? And we're like, cones? He goes, yeah, cones. And we went, oh, okay. So that's when we came out with like sport bras on it.
Yeah.
And we didn't really know what he meant. He didn't explain himself like cones. So, and then that's when he came up. He goes, what's with the drag? And we're like, well, you told us to start. He goes, no, I meant cones. He goes, like Madonna with those big cones. He goes, like that. And we were like, oh, something like that. And then, but I don't know if he was ribbing us or if he was just trying to say, hey, you guys are doing something wrong or different. Or, it was almost like we had to get people to talk about us again. When we first got there, that's all people talked about us. We were different. We were this. But Glenn was so far gone at that point. It was like, it was frustrating to me.
Wow. I know you touched on it a little bit earlier. Did you like the idea of teaming with D'Lo and Tiger when it was brought to you?
I like the idea of teaming with D'Lo.
Yeah.
D'Lo legit, when they first put us together, the storyline on TV was, and they put it over well, was, here's Chaz and D'Lo, 2 disgruntled employees, been here for a long time, not just happy to be here anymore. They want to contribute. They want to make money. They want to be stars, blah, blah. And that was exactly our feeling. And I used to say that. I used to go up to Shane all the time. And I go, dude, get me away from Glenn. Let me do singles. And D'Lo would come up. And D'Lo and I were driving together. And Glenn was driving on his own at that point. That was even before they split us up. And we were like, just give us a shot. Let us do something. And blah, 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 blah. So that was great. And then when they said, put us with Tiger, at first we were like, we're not that thrilled about it, especially when they wanted us to wear the turbans.
Yeah.
But then we thought about it. We said, well, he's got a fat contract. He's going to be here for a while. Vince is going to use him. It might as well be with us.
Yeah.
So then we didn't mind it. Again, it's like, it's something different. Like, how's it going to be taken? And, all of a sudden now, here I was a headbanger. I was this, I was that. Now we're coming out with turbans. And, D'Lo had his big run on his own. Now he's coming out with the turban. So that aspect, ego-wise, you're kind of like thinking about it, like, is this going to be good? But then when you think about it, Tiger is going to get pushed. So
Yeah.
it's going to be good for us.
How was Tiger to travel with?
You know what? He actually wasn't that bad. When he first came in, he kind of had this air about him, like, I'm better than everyone, and I'm this, and I'm that. But once you got down to it, and you got down to know him, he wasn't that bad of a guy. He would drive, he'd put his dues in, he'd be like, all right, let me drive, and, everything was split down the road with him, and, he wasn't an asshole like that or anything. His work sucked ass. I wish they would have kept him out of the ring. His work was freaking horrible, but he was all right as a person. He was a good guy.
Yeah. Was it frustrating that year to be kept out of the Royal Rumble?
No. Because I got paid anyway.
Oh, you did get paid?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
It was part of the angle.
Gotcha. So when you left the company, you were saying before that Jim Ross kind of just had you sit on the sidelines for the remaining...
for like 5 months.
Wow. So like after that, did you have plans to continue wrestling, or like what were your career plans?
Yeah, I wanted to. Obviously, I was going to try and keep wrestling because I had no idea what I was going to do.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is what I've been doing. I worked at Sam's Club for 4 years, and then I started wrestling. Like, that was 10 years of my life. I guess the idea was to just do some indies and try to go to Japan. When we were down in Puerto Rico, Victor had said, you know what? If they're done with you, let me know. I'll get you booked over in Japan. And Savio was like, if you want to come down here every now and then with weekends, we'll let you work down here, we'll pay you, blah, blah, blah. And then at the same time, I moved to Florida, and it was like, as soon as I had all these bookings in the Northeast, and I lived up here, I could drive to them. As soon as I moved to Florida, all those bookings just evaporated because no one wanted to pay a plane ticket.
Yeah.
It just evaporated. And then for some reason, the thing with Victor fell apart, and then D'Lo started going back and forth to Japan, and we were still, that's actually how I met my wife, was through him and his wife.
Okay.
And he started going back and forth, and he was miserable. And I'm like, fuck that. Dad's pregnant now. And I'm like, I'm not doing that. I didn't want to do it. He would come home. His daughter didn't know who he was.
Wow.
So, and then that's when I just said, you know what? I'm done. I'll do some indie stuff here and there. I did local stuff down in Florida, and that was it.
Wow. Are you surprised that you haven't been brought back, even like just to bring the Headbangers out one week or
well,
something?
I guess it was 2 years ago. I called up there, and I said, look, I'm very interested in coming back. I'm still in great shape. I can still work. I can still go. I want to come up and contribute. I had a whole storyline that I threw up to them before I even did anything or went anywhere. I said, here's a whole storyline of either, here's the one for if you want to bring Chaz back, if you don't want to bring Mosh back, or if you want to bring Mosh back, here's something like an angle to bring him back. And I had like 2 or 3 things that were like, this is great. That's when Tommy Dreamer was doing talent relations. And Tommy's like, it's great. He goes, how far are you from Jacksonville? I said, it's a 4-hour drive. He goes, come to Jacksonville. We want to talk to you. We want to get you in the ring, have a dark match, do a couple interviews, take some pictures, say hi to everybody. We're really interested. We want you to come back. Great. I go up to Jacksonville. I sit down with Johnny Ace. I sit down with Dean Malenko, Taker, sit down with Vince. I mean, everybody. And everyone's like, you know what? It's going to be, we need guys like you in the locker room. We have a lot of young guys around here. You can help with the younger guys. You've been here. We know who you are. You don't get in trouble. You keep your nose, blah, blah, blah. All the smoke, unbelievable amounts of smoke up my ass. I'm like, this is awesome. So Johnny Ace said to me, he goes, we don't need you to work. He goes, we can see you're in still good shape. We know how you work. We want you to go back there, do your couple interviews. We want you to do the Chaz ones. We want you to do the Headbanger one. He goes, and then we'll take it from there. Here's my cell number. Call me. Be in touch. We want to get this rolling. I'm like, fuck, this is great. Jackpot. I'm coming back. This is awesome. Everyone's happy. Never heard another word from anybody. I called countless times. Then I kept getting pushed from Johnny down to Tommy, and then Tommy down to someone else, to all of a sudden no one returning phone calls, no one doing anything. And I was like amazed. Like, okay, a month ago you guys were all high on, and then I was like, okay, things that don't happen quickly, what else could have happened? So now I'm asking, okay, did I do something wrong? What happened? And then all of a sudden nothing happened. Then probably about a year later, they called and they're like, okay, we're going to be down in Florida, we're still interested, blah, blah, blah. The day I was supposed to go down, they were down in Miami. The day I was supposed to go, they called me and they're like, yeah, never mind, we're not interested. And I was just like,
Wow.
okay. I was like, whatever. Like, when they called me the second time to come back down here in Miami, I didn't have the high hopes.
Yeah.
But the Jacksonville thing was really, really dick, because that was, come up, I got a hotel room. Again, hotel room's not a big deal and all that stuff. My time's not a big deal. They paid me the whopping $250 to come up there. It was all the smoke that got blown. Like, what was the point? You could have just said, Chaz, it's good to see you. Here's $250, or no, we're not interested.
Yeah.
Or, it was just all bullshit. And I just didn't understand that part of it. I was a little bitter about that. I was a little bitter about how I left, about what they did, how they just left me hanging there. It was almost like they left me hanging there when I left, just so I could have no career when I was done.
Yeah.
And then when they did that, it just got me real bitter.
Wow. Is it true that you got into a professional kickball team or something like that?
It's not professional, but it might as well be, yes. I play highly, highly competitive kickball. I am in a nationally ranked team. My team is ranked 3rd in the country right now. Could be 2nd now. We're on Meatballs. It's meatballkickball.com. We have our own website. I started playing about 3 years ago, and then the team I play for now got recruited onto their team, and it all started with they have a world championship every year. It's called WACA, World Adult Kickball Association, and they had every year they have the world championships. Well, they had last year they had it in Vegas. So these guys came up to me that I know that I play with, and they go, "Look, we're putting this team together to go to Vegas, play kickball." I'm like, "Yeah, I'll play with you guys." But like, I'm playing with you guys because you guys are good, and I like winning. I'm competitive, but I ain't no fucking way I'm going to Vegas to play kickball. Yeah. I was in Vegas last year playing kickball, and 64 teams were out there, and you have to win your division. You have to basically be invited out there by winning your division.
Yeah.
And the division I play in Fort Lauderdale is arguably the first or second toughest division in all the United States. 4 teams out of that division were in Vegas last year, and my team we lost in the finals. So we came in 2nd in the World Championships last year.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's very competitive, and it's awesome. I love it.
That's great. How did you get into Box of Moonlight?
Cornette. We were down in Smoky. Cornette took us outside, and he goes, you're going to get the booking schedule over the next month. He goes, I don't really have anything for you guys. There's really nobody for you to work. You know what happened with the gangsters and all that stuff, blah, blah, blah. And we're like, great. He goes, I had this movie deal. These guys are coming down. They're filming a movie. He goes, I'm going to get you guys in the movie, and they're going to pay you. He goes, and you're going to get paid more than if you wrestled the whole month. So he goes, I'm making up for it then. He goes, so we're like, okay, great. So he was the one who got us the gig. They came, and it was in Knoxville. We did a regular match against Buddy Landell, but in all the gimmick that they wanted us in for the concept of the movie, we did like a 6-minute match, and they took bits and pieces of it and put it in throughout the movie.
Huh. Did you see The Wrestler, by the way?
No, I have not seen it.
Oh, you haven't seen it?
I have not seen it.
Okay. Do you still foresee yourself either wrestling WWE, TNA, Japan, or have you kind of moved on from wrestling?
It's a tough question. Could I see myself going back? Absolutely. WWE at this point, do I see going back there? At this point, this business, you never say never. Yeah. But at this point, I say WWE, no. Only because I think if they wanted me back, by the contacts I've made and them calling me, they would have had me back by now. TNA, I say no, only for the reason is that I've gone there 3 or 4 times. I've sat down with Jeff, Vince was there, Cornette. I've sat down with everybody. It seems like they're only taking guys, and again, this is off the cuff, they're only taking guys that are fresh off WWF TV. Mm. I've been off TV too long for them to want to use, which is fine. Japan is still some sort of an option. I've always wanted to go to Japan. That's the one place I've always wanted to go that I've never gone to wrestle. Yeah. I would love to go to Japan. Here's where I'm at right now. I miss being in the ring. I don't miss being gone so much. When I was gone so much before, the 250 days a year, I didn't mind it. I was single.
Yeah.
That part would be tough for me now because I'm married and I have a 5-year-old son who is very active. He plays tennis, golf, baseball. He does karate, and he's involved in everything. And I can remember, I saw Billy Gunn a couple weeks ago, and I said to Kip, I said now it brings a whole new meaning to when I would walk in the locker room. He'd be sitting there like this. I'd be like, "What's wrong with you?" He's like, "Oh, Austin hit his first home run today, and I'm in fucking Montreal." I said, "That means something to me now. Now that I didn't appreciate it then or understand it, but I don't want to miss that stuff. But at the same time, I'd love to be back in the ring full time. I would love to. So who knows what the future holds? But if anybody's out there looking to book me, no.
Do you want to write a book at any point?
No.
Yeah.
I thought about it. I think a lot of the stuff, I don't know. I don't think enough of it would be, I don't want to say interesting enough, but I think it would be too much to try and remember. And I think it would be too much time. And again, I've been off TV way too long and out of the spotlight way too long, I think, for anyone to care about it. Unless I had something really like groundbreaking or I'm really busting out dirt on someone, but I don't really have anything like that.
Yeah.
Everything, my career's been very good. It's been good. The business has been good to me. I'm not one of those bitter old guys that are pissed off at everyone and feels the business f***ed them and screwed them over and somebody owes me something. I don't feel that way about the business. So I don't really have anything I think that compelling that would really sell any books.
I don't know how much you followed the business today, but I don't know if you know, but tag team wrestling is kind of gone by the wayside. What are your thoughts on tag team wrestling today, at least what you know of it in the WWE?
I just know Vince was never a big fan of tag team wrestling. He was never a big fan of it. He used it just to kind of keep it in there. Vince was always the top guys for the top belt, and that was kind of it.
Yeah.
I don't really follow it too much. If I'm watching it, if I'm laying in bed and I'm flipping it, I go, oh, wrestling's on. I'll stop. If it's somebody I know, I'll watch it. If it's not, I'll try to watch it. But I can't stomach it, so I turn it. Because a lot of it is, I see some guys out there, and I go, okay, they tell me I didn't have the charisma. They didn't know what to do with me. But here they got this guy up here, and they're doing something with him. That doesn't, it frustrates me and aggravates me, and I get mad, so I just turn it off.
Yeah.
I just choose not to watch it, unless it's somebody I know.
As we're closing out here, just one random good road story. Could be from anywhere, with anybody.
Random good road story.
It's not going to break up a marriage.
Probably some of the best road stories were back in Memphis days. When I first started, we drove with, and I used to drive Jerry Lawler and Brian Christopher crazy. Because we were the spiders with the masks. And as long as we covered our tattoos, no one knew who we were. So we made sure we were always covered. We drove with Axel and Ian. Some of the best stories were with them because Ian was just a big fucking turd who would sit in the back seat of the car and never move, never offered to drive, never offered to get gas, never offered to do anything except eat and sleep. But there was nights like we'd come home from a club or something like that, and we had water balloons. And I remember this one time, this kid's riding his bike. Glenn's driving, I'm in the back seat, Axel's in the front seat, and we're like, now, Axel throws the water balloon out the window, hits this guy dead square in the face, and you look back, you just see him tumbling over and over the bike like that. We're like, oh shit, take him off. So we take off, and literally 2 or 3 days later, we see the same guy in the store, all bandaged up, arm in a sling, and he's like trying to walk his bike. Like it looked like he was trying to ride his bike and ended up couldn't ride it. We used to do silly shit like that. I mean, I did more stuff back then, more fun stuff back then before WWF. Once we got to WWF, the road stories kind of got real tame.
Yeah.
Because again, I was afraid to get in trouble. I didn't want to lose my job. I knew we were on TV, and people would take advantage, and that whole storyline thing. So we did a lot of juvenile, adolescent stuff like that, like taping, taking Brian Christopher's sunglasses and just hiding them. And Brian Christopher would come in right before he's got to go to the match, right before he's got to go. Where are my sunglasses? Where are my sunglasses? You guys see my sunglasses? We're like, well, we haven't seen anything. He'd go to the ring, we'd put them back right on his back. I remember one time somebody tried ribbing us, and I think it was Doug Gilbert in Memphis days, USWA. He took a padlock and locked mine and Glenn's bag together. and like it was supposed to be a big deal. We lived together, we rode together, so we just picked up both bags and threw them in the car.
Yeah.
We used to piss everyone off when they tried to rib us like that. But most of our ribbing was small, innocent, just stupid shit like that.
Yeah. Was there anybody, any tag teams or anybody in WWE when you were there that you wanted to work with that you just never crossed paths with for whatever reason?
Trying to think. Not really. We pretty much worked everybody. We pretty much worked everyone. Maybe when they brought Cactus Jack and Terry Funk back. That would have been fun, only because it was Cactus and Terry Funk. That would have been awesome, but not really, no. I think we pretty much worked everyone that was there.
Okay. And what do you do today? Are you just retired or?
No, I work. I work with the family business. My father-in-law has a company. It's a technology company with office equipment and like doing websites and electronic paper flow and copiers, printers, scanners, anything pretty much that covers the whole company as an aspect. Anything that has to do with a piece of paper in the company. And I do sales. I work with the company.
Okay.
And it's good days, bad days. You know, it's good and bad. Working with families, not always the best, but it's good. It's provided a good living. It's just a big difference. Before I got beat up physically, now I get beat up mentally, and I still haven't figured out which is worse or better yet.
Was it a hard adjustment mentally to go from, you know, a job for 10 years wrestling to now having to go to like a 9-to-5 office, more regimented job?
Yeah, the toughest part about it was, you know, you live up here. You know, you're a superstar. People, you know, and then all of a sudden, like most of the people in my life now, like that I play kickball with, that I work with, they all know about my past, but they don't know the like extent of it.
Yeah.
Like when I tell them, oh, I'm going to wrestle or I'm doing a show here, and everyone shows up, everyone's like in amazement of like what I do, and when I get in the ring, and you know, I can still do everything I used to do, and they don't know the capacity of it. So I think from going from up here to okay, now I'm down here.
Yeah.
I think at first it was a little bit of a culture shock to me because I was used to being, I don't know if spoiled is the right word, or you know, people looked up to me more of what I did, and now it's not so much. And now I'm not as recognizable. You know, I've let the hair grow in, and the earrings are gone, and I've dropped. You know, I'm not 250 anymore. I'm like 220. So it's a big difference. And I think maybe the biggest part is not being recognized as much as like now I get when someone actually recognizes me, I'm like, oh yeah, cool, yeah, that used to be me. It's kind of a cool feeling again. It's more of the personal feeling, but as far as the adjustment, that's the biggest adjustment I had to make.
Yeah. Do you have a website or MySpace or anything where somebody can get in touch with you if they
I'm on Facebook.
Okay.
I'm on Facebook. Actually, doing the convention, Ken said he'd been looking for me for a couple of years. No one was able to find me. It made me actually like 6 or 7 weeks ago actually get on Facebook. So my wife was on it all the time, and I used to make fun of her, going, "That's so silly." And I don't really care about friends from high school and stuff like that. If they were going to be my friends, they'd still be my friends now. But it made me actually get on there, and I'm actually glad I did. But yeah, I'm on Facebook.
Okay.
So you can find me on there.
Okay, and just your name for it's because people.
I think it's Chaz. I think it's Chaz.Warrington.
Okay.
I think it's Facebook/Chaz.Warrington.
Okay. And last, definitely not least, we always ask guys if they have a message or they want to say anything to their fans. We close out.
You know, not to sound corny or retarded or anything, but you know, I just thank everybody for the years that they supported us, and you know, it was great entertaining everyone and getting out there and doing it. And you know what? I'm still young enough to still go out there and do it. So hopefully in the future I'll still be able to, and I'll see you all out there. And just keep on keeping on. Have good mosh pitting.